Welcome everyone to our class on Ian Begar, how to learn the Torah in depth. Since we talking about Shavuos and Shavuos Kabbalah, I just wanted to maybe start with this little chazal. Alexander the Great, whose teacher was Aristotle, is now going to conquer the world. That was called the Great, and he comes to Eretz Yisrael and he meets the Chachmei Darom. He meets the men, the great wise Talmudei Chacham in the south. This is a Gemara in Talmud 32. So he asks them 10 questions, and they give him 10 answers. And I'm just going to say briefly what they are, and to explain that here the Gemara is talking about this cultural conflict between the Greek world, which is Western man, and his concept of being the rulers of nature and the rulers of the physical world, and the Chachmei Darom, who says that the world is only a means, it's not an end, and it's a means to come close to Kadosh Baruch Hu. So they start out asking, he starts out asking them what seems to be some physical questions, like what is a greater distance, the distance between east to west or from the earth to the heavens? So they say the east to west is going to the earth to the heavens. So you have to understand where they're discussing, astronomy, They're not discussing astronomy. They're discussing what is man's purpose in the world. Alexander the Great says that the distance between east to west is smaller, and therefore man should first conquer the physical reality. After he's conquered the physical world, then he can elevate himself and talk about the spiritual reality. And the proof is that the distance from the earth to the heavens is way, universe is so far away, and the distance from east to west is short. So they answer him, no, really the distance from the earth to the heaven is actually shorter than the distance from east to west. Because the Torah says, Lo b'shamayim hi ela b'ficha. They don't answer this, but I'm spelling it out. It's not in Shemayim. It's b'ficha u'levcha lasoso. It's actually the relationship with Kodesh Baruch Hu is very close. When the Greek mind thinks about everything is there's the physical world, and there's called achar teva, after, what's called after. But those worlds are so far away and lofty, But the Torah says no. Actually, the relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu is very, 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 very close. It's just in your mouth and your heart. You just have to change your way of perceiving reality. Anyway, then he asks them which came first, the heavens or the earth. So they quote a pasuk from Bereshis, as you mentioned before, that says Hashem was bara Shemayim v'aretz. Shemayim was first and Aretz was later. But what was his philosophical standpoint? His philosophical point, he wanted them to say that the earth was created first. After the physical world, then Hashem created the higher worlds. First you build a building, a foundation, and then you build the upper floors and stories. They said no, it's just the opposite from the pasuk. So then he also asked what's the difference between light and dark. You can read all the 10 of them. Very interesting questions. Then they give another series of midos. He says who is the wise man? Right, so he thought what was the answer to the wise man? Ezehu Chacham. Oh boy. Aroas Anolad. Aroas Anolad. Aroas Anolad. A person who could see the result of his actions. He wanted to say, who's a chacham? A person who has mastered the wisdom of the world, like he's learned with his teacher Aristotle. He learned about all the categories. He learned about all the physical world and politics, and that's who's wise. A person who understands all of physical reality. They said no. Roas and Nolad. What does Roas and Nolad mean? That you have to look at what is going to come out of your existence. What are you going to give? What are you going to give birth to? What's the final goal? The final birth is not this world. The final goal is the relation with Olam Haba. This world is only a prose door. So if you see that your actions in this world lead to a din v'cheshbon and a place in the next world, then your relationship, that's called seeing the nola, seeing the result of your actions. So that was again. Then he asked, who is an usher? So again, his philosophical point: usher is the person who has the most money, right? And he's going to conquer the world and get all the gold and silver in the world. So they say to him, no, hasameach b'chelko. Now, to be sameach b'chelko is only if you have a relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. You see? Because your chelek means the chelek that the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave to you. If you realize that everything you're getting is just from Kodesh Baruch Hu, so then you're happy. But if you want to conquer the world and grab everything and more and more and more, you'll never be happy. And then they ask them, they say, who's a gibor? You see? Now, a gibor, I'm a gibor. I'm conquering the whole world. The gibor is powerful, has people under him, slaves, and conquering everyone. Everyone shakes in front of him. No, they said. Ezhu gibor, hakovish es. Not the person who's kovish the world, who conquers the world, the person who conquers his Yetzirah. Now that, again, they hit him with such. This is a tremendous clash here of philosophical points of view. It's the inner world of your Yetzirah and a Yetzirah Tov, and those negative aspects that you have to conquer and change. And again, the only way you're going to do that with Yiras Hashem. Then he says to them. He says he wants to go to Africa. How can I? So they said to him, you're not going to be successful. Why? Because there's these Harei Choshech, these black mountains, very dark. So he said to them, I didn't ask you if I should go or not. I want to know how to get there. So they give him an Asa how to, get these white Lubian donkeys and tie them with strings and make sure you can go through, there'll be a string on the side you leave, and then when you get to the other side of light, you'll be able to be on the other side and you can come back. Okay, where that means in the mashal, I don't really know. But he goes to Africa, and there his confrontation is with, the first confrontation he has is with a country only of women, like the Amazon women, because it's in Africa. Right. So they come out and they say to him, look, there's no sense conquering us, because if we conquer you in battle, they'll say that you lost to a bunch of women. And if you conquer us, they'll say you beat up some women. It's like a boucher, So he's stymied, So he says, give me something to eat. So they bring him golden loaves of bread. He says, what's this? What do I need golden loaves of bread for? I want to eat. He says, look, you're a king. You must have food at home. You didn't come on this world conquest for food. Must mean you came for money. That's why we gave you money. So he writes on the door, so the great, I was not wise until I came to this city of women. But again, look at what the Chazal is saying. Your whole philosophy is conquering the world. So Hashem puts in front of him these women, and he sees through his own admission that he can't conquer the world. But does he change him? Does he move that step to Yiras Hashem, to relationship with the Creator? No, he keeps going forward. In other words, he doesn't even feel the contradiction. Wait a minute, you're supposed to be conquering the world. Here you can't, you're limited. Realize your limitation, Hashem says to him. No, he just moves on. He says, now I'm wise, now I understand, and I go on. So now he goes on a little further, and he sees the stream, and he takes this dried fish that they had to, on these big excursions, you had to salt your fish, right? That's what you had to do in order to, keep the food fresh. So what they do is very salty. They had to wash it off. So he washes it off in the stream. All of a sudden, he smells this wonderful aroma coming from this water. He says, "Wow, what's this?" So he starts following the stream back to its source, and it's a mayan, a fountain. He goes back to the source. I think Mayan usually is under the ground, these are the ones here in Eretz Israel. He comes to the source, and he's at the gates of Gan Eden. So he says, let me in. They say, Zeh Shala Hashem, Tzadikim Yovam. They says, this gate is the gate of Hashem. Only Tzadikim come in. Again, a powerful message. Do you think he listens? Do you think he does tshuva? He says, I'm a king. Give me something. So out from the shar comes this skull. And it's only not the whole skull, it's the skull that has the eye orb on it. You know, the skull that holds the eye. So he takes it, he goes back. He measures all the wealth that he has, all the gold and the silver. This skull piece like outweighs everything. He doesn't know what's going on here. It's like just the heaviest thing in the world. So he goes back to the Chachamim. He says, you know, what is this? How come this skull is like outweighing everything? They say this is the eye of man. The eye is never satiated. Whatever man sees, he always wants more. And we'll prove it to you. They take sand and they pour it on top of the eye socket. And all of a sudden, all his gold and silver jump up to the top. So again, what is Hashem saying to him? You know, you think that you're going to be able to conquer everything. But it says, oh, have kesev lo nispa kesev. A person who loves money will never be satisfied. There's always more and more and more and more and more to want and to desire. So why don't you give up and realize that that's not the purpose of life? Anyway, we don't hear that he did tshuva, and I'm sure he didn't, because there's two types of wisdom. There's wisdom, it says, Chachma b'goyim tamim, there's wisdom, secular wisdom, and then there's Torah wisdom. And the Torah wisdom, Mesil Sharmi says, that's Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem hi Chachma. The wise person is a person that realizes the goal of life and the purpose of life. And that's coming close to Kodesh Baruch Hu. The secular person can live his whole life, you know, like Aristotle and everything, and never get the point. And that's the wise. They could be very, very smart, and they can know a lot of information about the physical reality. But true wisdom they don't have, because they don't understand the purpose of life. So that's the juxtaposition, the limitation of secular knowledge, and the great revelation and new madrega, the gigantic madrega of Yiras Hashem. Anyway, so that was it's a great chazal. There's loads of things to talk about it there, and again, it's very, very essential.
I have to look at it. It sounds really amazing.
Lamed Beis now. Right. Now, when you read it, you know, you just see, you know, a few lines and a few questions, because that's how Chazal does. Yeah. But when you understand, like we're trying to do here, what is really at stake, then you get the neshama of what's going on. It's a great piece. Yeah. Okay. Now let's start with our piece. Okay. Yeah, you have to look at Lev. You see, even the page numbers, and even though it was
even the page number, exactly.
You say, well, come on, that's just the widow Ram, and they had to typeface things, and that's how things turned out. Even the page numbers have significance. That's the way it goes.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Now, let's go to our piece now. That was our piece. Now, what I did you send? Probably I didn't have the time. Okay. Now, what I'm doing,
Sorry, I didn't hear the...
Did you see the link that I sent you a link? What I did right now on the site.
I tried to open it. It didn't quite open, so I don't know why. I'll try it again later.
Try it again. Anyway, what I'm doing now...
Our lessons, basically?
Yes, that's all our lessons. Now, I'm giving this class in 2 levels.
Oh, okay.
You know, I have another wonderful student there in New York, and he's gone through all these books, so I can now refer to the books and to say, okay, now let's take these theoretical knowledge that we learned in Sefer Tfunos and Higayon and all that, and let's apply it. So that's a very exciting level. But we're doing it in level 1, even without the books, and whatever we need the books, I'll bring some of the important points in. But Tfunos is a must. It's a real, again, you have to appreciate the subtleties of what's going on over there, except it looks like a lot of technicalities, but it's not. He's got tremendous chidush in there. And the other book is this Daki Gemara is also fantastic. Okay, but what I did here, what I'm starting to do here now, because really the program is the program. I know where I want to go, and Bezat Hashem will get there. What we're trying to do here is go step by step, uncovering each level of revelation of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now it's all there, as we said in the zip file, in those few words that says Meitav Sedeu, Meitav Karmo, Yishalem. Those few words. Meitav Sedeu, Meitav Karmo, Yishalem. 5 words. In those 5 words, we've already had, I don't know, maybe 18 hours or something like that, of shirim. Okay, and every shir is a necessary piece. It's not like we're just talking about, okay, in the beginning now I talked a little about Musar, but we've been talking straight about the piece. Because every move has to be understood in order to, as I said, unpack this message. Okay, so what I did here now, and I'll send you this in a package. I'm making a package of where we are up till now. So we have our introduction. We gave a broad overview in the introduction, and then we said there's 6 levels of Peshat that we're going to be involved in. We already did the first level, which is the Torah. We did the Mishnah very briefly, and now we're doing the Gemara. Okay, now the Gemara L'chara did not start with this Gemara did not start with the Mishnah. Okay, a lot of times the Gemara starts with the first line, then it quotes the second line, the third line. This Gemara, it says it started with the word Tashlumei Nezek, but the first way that the Gemara got involved in this piece is a machlokus between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. Okay, so we're going to just look at that briefly again, but this is sort of the outline of where we're going. We're going to have this explanation of their machlokus, that's Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, explain the Kal Vachomer of Rabbi Akiva. Then we're going to have these verses in collision that we're going to investigate in this class. Inside this time, we did outside, basically. We're going to have 4 solutions on this page. Okay, then we're going to have another explanation of a part of that brisa, which is going to be talking about the relationship of the mazik's payment, whether it's totally subjective, he always has to give the best of his land, or is it an objective evaluation, i.e., is his best land considered best in relationship to what's the market price and market value? So is it a subjective best, or is it a market value best? Okay, because a person could have a land which is in the market is called the best, and he has 3 times, like AAA land, so, or he can have very poor land, which may be his best, but in the world situation, that's called poor. So that's a question that has to be discussed, and the Gemara will discuss that next. Then after a discussion of that question and associated problems, there's going to be this 5th answer to our question, it seems, of Rav Huna. So that's going to be the lineup. We're going to have 5 answers to Abaya's dilemma. 2 of them are going to be accepted, 3 of them are going to be rejected. We're going to have to be involved in each one inside and see them. And then once we understand that information in its raw form, as we saw in the Talmud, the Gemara, so then we're going to go into the next level, which will be the Rishonim. And then Bezat Hashem will go to the Torah Shulchan Aruch and the regular Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll go to the Gra and the Nachlas David, and then the Evan contemporary, more or less contemporary Rosh Yeshivas. And we'll see Bezat Hashem how each one fills in more of the picture. It's all filled in through a logical extension from the givens, but since the information is written in a very brief way and it's supposed to be understood, and unfortunately as we go along more and more things are not understood, so they have to spell out more and more of those connections, and that's basically where we're heading. Okay, I also put together, Baruch Hashem, a whole group of documents that we're using, so be able to see those also. Okay, so that was my work making the outline. And now where,
Chaim, this,
yeah.
do you ever think? I mean, do you ever think of putting this in a book format?
That's what you'll do.
I mean, it's
The problem
okay.
of the book
That's why
is, no, really, I'm very serious about it. See, the problem of the book is
no.
it's not my language.
That's why I'm asking. It's exactly why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because I think it should be. I think the combination of the charts and putting it in a kind of written discursive form would be great.
Right. Now, I'm not a writer. I can write, but I'm belabored when it's, you know what I mean? I start.
I'll do that.
If you can start doing that, that'd be fantastic. Because I really believe a book is much more accessible than sitting and listening to 20 hours of shears or like that. Rather very committed.
No, both. I mean, both is good.
Right. And we have a lot of material, and it's fantastic. I mean, I wish I had this introduction. People say, you always want to give your children what you didn't have. Okay. But this type of introduction is very, very important because you're able to see a slice of the whole system from beginning to end. Once you see that, then you have to go through all of Shas, but at least you understand your parameters, you see? Now, it's a yam. Why they call it the Yam Talmud? Because the truth is it's an ocean, both in the horizontal plane and the vertical plane. But at least you understand, you have your orientation. From up to down, you know where you're going, and now you have to fill in information, and every piece is it's as deep as this. And what's beautiful is the matrix means that we deal with the interaction of pieces. Once we make a move here, it changes that whole web. Right? As I told you, you have the spider web. Once you move one thread in the spider web, then everything else readjusts. So at certain points, only readjust a small part of the web. Like say you're talking about the Kohen Gadol on his Avoda Yom Kippur. So I mean, how many parts of the total system? But here, for instance, when we're talking about paying for things, that's going to impact on a lot of areas in Torah. You see, we're going to start talking about kesef and shavik kesef. Shavik kesef is a din with a woman. You gave your wife a ring. What was that ring? You're supposed to give her money. So the Mishnah says you can marry her with the act of giving her kesef or shavik kesef. Where do they learn it from? They learn it from a different pasuk, from an Eved. There's also a ribui over there. So then the whole problem, if there's a ribui there and there's a ribui here, why do we need two ribuis? Two ribuis doesn't mean the mute. You can't learn everywhere else, and therefore we have to then show why each one was necessary, and therefore it becomes a global rule in payment. Okay? Now, so what we're studying here, this affects on a lot of Torah. So what I'm trying to say is there's certain parts that may only affect a small area of the total matrix, but there's other areas that impact in broad areas of the Torah. So we can, Baruch Hashem, if we're clear at least on one piece, we can grow and go to the next piece. But if we're not clear on anything, what unfortunately happens is you end up with a muddy picture. And the Torah is not muddy, it's just deep, but it's very clear. But Baruch Hashem. Okay, so if you can do that part with, figuring out a way how to write up what we're doing, I would love it. Okay, great.
Basically, the idea would be I don't want to spend, but the idea would be to basically, you would see it as following the order of presentation that we've been doing up until now, no?
100%. The whole idea is to show the levels of what I call decompression or unzipping the file. How the words are very, very compressed at the top level, very compressed. Meitiv Sedei, Meitiv Karmi Yishalem.
How long do you think, how long would it take us to go through to the end of this, this slice? I mean, I'm asking for a reason, because maybe, in a way, I think it might be better for me to go through the whole thing once, and then do it again.
No problem.
Do the second time.
No problem. Yes, because then you'll know where we're going, and it's very helpful to know where you're going. Okay. No, great. Anyway, I can't say which way, and I can't even say how long, because the journey, believe me, the journey that we're going on is a very, very long journey. I'm trying to make it as clear and as brief as possible. But the truth is that every one of these moves are very, very significant. For instance, when we were talking about here, as you remembered, this move of extending to Hegdish is a very significant, is or isn't like Hegdish. That's all based on the analogy between Hegdish and Baal Chov, the analogy between damaging Hegdish and damage and secular damage, whether Hegdish is in or out as far as Hezek is concerned. So those are very delicate relationships. So we're not going to the end of that relationship. We're trying to keep it a little bit brief as much as possible. But those things are very, very exciting, and they're going to also impact on our study, because later on, when we get down to the halacha, okay, we're going to have to know, does Baal Chov, is it learned from Nezikin or not? That's a big nafkamina. I mean, what does Baal Chov pay? Also, he has to pay from the best of his land, or no, he doesn't. The majority opinion, we said, was that you can pay Zibris in Baal Chov, and then there's only a Gezeres Midarabana. But what I'm trying to explain here is that I'm trying to give, I can't give you a specific time. I wish I could, because this is also my first time through with this type of format. But we'll try to be as efficient as possible, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. What can I do? Because I don't want to cut, I don't want to cut unnecessarily, because chaval, if we don't see these points, because all these points are very, very important in understanding what the learning process is. After all I'm doing is showing you what is being spoken about. I'm not creating anything here. I'm just presenting it in a way that's accessible. Okay, people can read this Gemara in 5 minutes, you know. How many lines is it? 5 lines? What is it? But the depth is unfortunately sometimes missed. So I have a conflict between going very deep and spending a lot of time, and going shallow and spending less time. And I'm trying to make a good balance so that you begin to taste the beauty of the depth, and yet we can go forward in our main goal, which is really to see this halacha going through all the generations. That would be fantastic. And Baruch Hashem. Okay, so I can't answer you very well more than that, but we'll see how it goes. But you know, we can wait. There's no problem with that. Okay, so let's go back to our where we're holding here. Okay, of course, we had that whole discussion, Rabbi and Rabbi Shmuel. We concluded we're not talking about evaluation of damage. You know, we're not going to, you know, we don't know what was damaged. And then we go l'chumrah and say, well, you have to pay the best, or even worse, we don't say if you pay the worst, you have to pay the best. Those are all in there. So we're not talking about the evaluation of the damage. We know how to evaluate damage. We're going to pay for what you damaged. Okay, fine. But when you do pay, that's what the machlokas is. When you're paying for damages, what does the Torah demand of you? For paying for damages, I'm being very careful about that, because that's our subject here, paying for damage. Now, whether that impacts on other places where we have to pay, Rabbi Akiva says it does when it comes to damaging Hegdish, and Rabbi Shmuel says no. But that's a side problem. The conclusion of our discussion is that we're dealing with paying for damage, and the Torah says you meitav sedeu umeitav karma yishalem. You have to pay with the best of your land, or the best of your vineyard. That's what you have to pay with. Okay. So, oops, I'm sorry. Back there. Oops, there we go. Very good. Okay, so then we're going to be in stage 2. We're going to have these two polar opposites. Okay, I'll make that a little bigger so we can see it. Okay, we're going to have on one hand, here's the pasuk of meitav. We're going to do we're going to do inside Beset Hashem, or a lot of it. Meitav Sedeu says that you have to pay with the best of your field, the best of your vineyard. And Abai is to say, well, if you have to pay with the best, it means you can't pay with anything else. So that was your question, and that was a very significant question. It's a question that's been bothering me a long time. Beset Hashem will also able to define that question a little better, but that's what he says. And if we take the question as in its most extreme sense, you have to pay with the best of your land. But we have another pasuk here that says Yashiv. That's the pasuk we said in war. It says that the person has to pay Yashiv. He has to L'shalom Kesev Yashiv L'balav. So the word Yashiv, you said Yishalom Kesev L'balav. What's this extra word Yashiv? So of course we know in Dr. Gemara says every extra word has a meaning. And this extra word Yashiv comes to tell us you can give any type of hashava. Okay, you can return with anything, as long as it has value. Of course, you're not going to give him sour milk that's worth nothing, but any type of lashiv, of returning to the person who was damaged, is good. And the brisa continues, vafilu subin, even subin. Now, subin is a classical nickname for the worst item that has value, okay? Because subin is the bran. It practically has no value. When you want to fatten your animal, you don't use bran because it's not too nutritious, but if you want to get rid of his hunger, you do eat bran. So bran is a very poor animal food. It's about the lowest line. It takes up, bags and bags to make a few a few dollars, a few shekels. So it's a very poor grade of paying someone back when you have to pay him back with subin. So we have this dilemma. On one hand, the Torah says you can pay back the person who was injured with anything that has value, and the other pasuk says no, only with the best of your land. So those are two polar opposites. We're going to Be'ez Hashem investigate that carefully, and we're going to have 5 different answers here to that question, and let's start investigating today these 5 different answers. Okay, and as we mentioned, also each answer is going to have pluses and minuses, but it's my understanding that each answer pushes the envelope a little further. There's a little more dachuk. We would rather start with the simplest answer, which is easiest to fit into the words. When that fails, we'll have to take what's called more of a perish dachuk. We'll have to force a forced explanation of the words until we get to a solution which is not going to run into any contradictions. Now, the contradictions, normally I should add, he says in Darkei Gemara, he says in Darkei Gemara that I tried to, okay, I won't save it. He explains in Darkei Gemara that you bring proofs and also disproofs to statements from 2 parts, from kasuv, from things that are written, or from svara, which means a logical analogy or a kalma or a binyanav. Binyanav is or a classical syllogism. An old statement. All men have legs. Reuven is a man. Reuven has legs. That's a classical syllogism, but that's through logical reasoning. Okay, as opposed to it's what the pasuk says. So the 2 basic foundations of knowing Torah is through what's written there in black and white, making some inferences, or it's physically written there, or like say a remez, an extra word. That's one way, because there's physical black and white writing, and then there's other logical extensions that are done, like all these syllogisms. Okay, certain syllogisms which are just common sense syllogisms, as we said, and certain syllogisms which are halacha Moshe Sinai, like the Gezer Shava. But those are the 2 sources. So there's always going to be this interplay between svara and pasuk, and that's another thing that we're going to keep our eye on. So with that rather lengthy introduction, as usual, we're going to go to the text, okay, and then we'll look inside here. Okay. So you actually mentioned when we looked, let's go here first of all. There we go. Okay. And because of modern technology, we have the top of the screen, which is fixed. Of course, not in its beautiful form in the Gemara, but in a what I call visual logic form, where we can actually see the statements, the difficulties raised, and the solutions. On the top and the bottom, we're going to have Rashi. Okay, so we'll need both of those things in order to get involved. Okay, so let's start again. We began this, and let's read inside, and then we'll start to try to consciously understand what's going here. Oh, so why don't you start here? Make it.
Okay, Rami le Abaye le Rabba.
Okay, so first of all, we said Rami. Rami. Yeah, I won't even let you get one word out of your mouth. Too bad. Okay, Rami. Okay, Rami means to throw. Okay, so he explains in Dirk Funos, a Rumi is a type of difficulty, a kasha. Okay, where you throw two statements or two verses together, and through that collision, boom, you're going to come to a deeper understanding. Okay, but it also starts with two l'chora at first contradictory statements. That's a rumia. Okay, so what was the rumia? Go ahead.
So the rumia, ksiv meis of the Sadeh who made of Karma Yishalim. It says in Shmois that that you should use the best of our land or the best of our vineyard to pay. Meitav it says meitav yes, mida acharina lo. Another form of payment not. Right? Is that what mida means?
Yes. Other things not.
So,
right? Midday. Other things. Acharina is other. Mida is things. Lo. Okay. Now you asked last week, and we're going to analyze that statement after I give you a little chance to read the contradiction. We're going to analyze that a little better. Okay. So what's the contradiction? Hi, Tanya.
Tanya, Yashiv l'Rabba Shava Kesef Afilu Suvin. So when it says in Shmois, it says Yashiv, that means the word implies an inclusion of the equivalent of money and also any equivalent of anything, right down to the most paltry item.
Correct.
So anything could be.
As long as it has value, okay? As long, anything, even the. Okay. Now let's read Rashi here. Here's Rashi. First Rashi, Yashiv.
Yashiv Kesef, Yashiv Levalov.
That's what the pasuk says.
The Havale Michtav Baal Habor Yeshalem Kesef Levalov. Michtav here means.
It should have written. Yes, exactly. Scripture should have written.
Oh, the Havale is so it should have been written that the one who dug the hole should pay money to the Baalav. What does that mean?
To the owner of the ox that fell in, the bull that fell in.
Right.
Right. So it actually, what does it say? It says Baal Habor Yishalem Kesef Yashiv Lebalov. That's the whole pasuk. The Baal Habor Yishalem Kesef Yashiv Lebalov. It should have said Baal Habor Yishalem Kesef Lebalov. Right before the word Yebalov, it adds the word Yashiv. The Baal Habor should pay kesef, returning it to the owner of the ox. Well, of course you're going to return. Who else are you going to return it to? Except the owner of the ox that you destroyed. But you give it to the temple? We're talking about paying for damages here. So this word Yashiv is a flag. It sticks out, and it says, "Please, I want you, my Jewish people, to understand the message here." Okay? So Rashi's and the Brisa. And by the way, Tanya is always a Brisa. These phones. When we get rid of phones, Tanya, by the way, means a Brisa. A Brisa means from the word bar, outside. That means Rabbi Yehuda Brasi put together the Mishnah in this very tight system of the Mishnayos that we have, and other things which he felt should remain Torah Sheba'al Peh, or other halachas that we may not hold, so he left out. So the Gemara now viewing the Mishnah likes to use brises as an explanation of what the Mishnah is talking about. We presume that there's an agreement, okay, unless we're forced not to say so. Okay, so here the brisa tells us the extra word, which must be explained, is coming to tell us that you can give shava kesef. Okay, very good. Now Rashi goes further, and let's see what else Rashi says here. It says the haveh l'michta balabu yishalem kesef lebalav. Yashi, extra word, the kasav rachmana lamali. What do I need it for? Okay. Why do we need it? Go ahead.
It's, since it already says Yishalem, so why do I need the superfluous word? The Rabbos call hashava is to include all equivalent payments, all equivalent payments of equivalent value.
Now, I think this word is not shaveh with a double vav, but is lahashiv.
Yeah,
okay, yeah. To include anything that you return. All
compensation.
Any item of compensation, any form of compensation, right? Mm-hmm. So lav daf, you don't have to give kesef, but you do kesef, and you could do anything that you would lahashiv to the baal, any item that you can return to the baal, which means anything that has money, right? Even subin. Mm-hmm. So it comes to include that concept. Okay, so that was the contradiction. Now here in my chart, I tried to make things, oops, not one. We got all these charts here. There we go. So now we have the psukim. One that says meitav in, yes. I'll put a little thing there. A media achrina lo. So the question was, you asked last week, what is the media achrina? What is involved in that? In that circle, okay. So here's all acceptable payments. So it says meitav in, but media achrina lo. So I wrote here all the possibilities that I could think of. Okay. One is a simple diuk. If I say to you the best land, so it has to eliminate the worst land, right? That's a mukhrach inference, right? Again, it's based on language. Ramchal explains this. I won't get so deeply involved in it, but this is called, in the Ramchal's term, actually, it's called built-in mukhrach because it's based on language, as opposed. He holds that the only mukhrach diyukim are the mathematical ones. Like I say, all buses have wheels. Anything that doesn't have wheels is not a bus. Okay, there's a small group of mathematical diyukim which must be true if the statement is true. But language, we can play with a little. Okay, but here it's clear that the best land. So there must be worse land. And I told you can only use the best land when it comes to eliminate worse land, correct? Or medium land too, whatever. Anything that's not the best, correct? Right. Now, if it's going to eliminate worse land, and we have to talk about this in a second, but also anything that's not land, it has to be eliminated too. Why do we say that? Let's talk about that in 1 minute. And then we have to talk about money. So these are the possibilities. The question is, what does May come to eliminate? How many of these possibilities? Definitely worse land is out, that's for sure. But is it coming to eliminate all forms of movables and money, just movables? That's going to be the discussion that we're going to have. And that's a very important discussion. That was my chiddush on Baruch Hashem that Hashem put in my head on Shavuos, is that's going to be one of our problems. What does the Torah mean when it says the best land? What does it come to eliminate? What universe is it coming to eliminate? So over here, I wrote the universe of things that people are talking about. You have, and I put a priority here. Again, everything is debatable, okay? But we have to start somewhere, so we're going to start with what seems to be the position of a good question. Okay, we have money, number one, right? That's one circle. Then the Torah says money clearly, correct? It says kesef yashiv l'bal. The yashiv is a ribui, which means that if I had kesef, I wouldn't have known that, right? Must mean kesef is greater than those yashiv things in some aspect, and we have to discuss what aspect, right? Because I needed a ribui to include Shaveh kesef. If it was understood from kesef, so then I wouldn't need an extra word. It must mean that it's something less than kesef. We have to discuss what factor, what makes it less. Okay? Important. So what is the Shaveh kesef? Well, Shaveh kesef includes best land, worst land, best movables and worst movables. These all are non-money items. You have land and what I call movables, because normally when the Gemara talks about items, it talks about metaltalin, when movable things, as opposed to land. I think we use the word in English, we call about real estate, okay? Why they call it real as opposed to other forms of investment, I don't know, but I guess it's the most gashmiest thing you can own. That's an interesting question, why it's called real estate. Somehow it's more real than if you buy and sell, Coca-Cola. Okay, but the Torah basically, I mean, the Gemara basically divides the world into karka and to metaltalin. The aspect of karka means land, but metaltalin means things that are movable. Okay, so that's the definitions that we're going to be working with. Good. So if the Torah would have only said money, I would have not include any type of Shaveh kesef, not land and not movables, only cash. Okay, and we said a couple of svaras there about money. Money is universally, one good thing about money is it's universally acceptable, right? The downside about money is that you don't get immediate satisfaction, immediate pleasure, right? You have to go out and buy what you want with the money. But the good side of money is that it's universally acceptable. Everyone will accept it for whatever you want. Good. So if the Torah would have said money, I would not have included land or movables. I would say only money. Once the Torah said yashiv, it said no. Oh, very interesting. I jumped the gun too. Yashiv. Any type of hashava. Okay, there's another Gemara. Okay, I don't want to get complicated yet. Let's keep it simple. Let's just say there's money, okay? And now we're coming to include this white circle in here called Shaveh kesef. Is that things that have the value, have a monetary value, but are not money themselves. Okay, so now I blame on top after money, the best land on top after money, because of the second diuk over here. Since Abaya said Yoshiv l'Rabba, sorry, over here. Abaya said Meitav in media achrina lo, which means Meitav, and I'm adding the word, the best land, and nothing else. So the best land must have been here, and it comes to eliminate worse land and movables. And this is my my levels of, what do I call it? Not priority.
Hierarchy.
Hierarchy. It's my hierarchy. And that was one of my chiddush also. I didn't think about it that deeply, but you know, when you're doing these circles, these Venn diagram type things, so you don't see hierarchy. And the reason is because the Torah, and this is a chiluk that the Ramchal explains, there's a difference between categorization and communication. What do I mean? Categorization is where things belong, but when I'm writing about something in the Torah is being very efficient with its language, so it's going to say all the times it'll say the chiddush from which you derive all the other cases from. It'll always talk about the cutoff point, right? It's not going to talk about all the cases because that would be superfluous. So if I have a hierarchy and the Torah tells me this is the top of the totem pole, so to speak, so I know now by inference that everything else is out. Anything that's less than that does not have the law. Okay, then that's a question of communication. If you're talking about categorization, I might have to write down all these 5 items if I want to categorize them. But if I want to communicate a law in the most efficient way, I should tell you what the cutoff point is. Okay, so like I always say, you're on the road and it says, 80 kilometers the speed limit is 80 kilometers. So you know that under than that, you didn't have to say the speed limit is 80, and if you go 81, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're over, and if you go 79, 78, 70, you're under. It doesn't have to be a large chart. They tell you what the cutoff point is, and then you're supposed to interpolate and say, oh, anything greater than that, of course, is out, and anything under that is not in. You see? You don't say the policeman, well, wait a minute, it didn't say 82, it just said 80. You know, so that is exactly what's going on in the Torah. In order to be as efficient as possible, it tells us what the cutoff point is, and that's why we can infer that anything less than that could not be used. So when you tell me Meitav, Sadehu, Meitav Karma, so anything less than Meitav will not be considered valid payment. Okay, now what is called less? Well, we said these things are less, but what about money? Is money equal to? You see that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Is money equal to Meitav, or is it greater than Meitav? So we said, wait, well, since it said Yashiv, so it seems that money is the greatest. But if we look at the text, it says Yashiv Larabos Shavakesiv. Shavakesiv, Rafil Subin. So is Subin, does that mean movables, or does it just mean the worst of all Shavakesiv? So if we learn it's the worst of all Shavakesiv, so that it comes to include all these 4 boxes. Okay, so very simply here, this is what we're starting to play with. This was the Chiddush. The Chiddush is you must define the universe that you're dealing with, and you must define, very importantly, the priority. And that's a Chiddush because you have to know that this case will be a cutoff point. So you have to know what's being cut off. So the Meitiv, in Midiachrina Lo, we said, well, if this is the priority, so it says Meitiv and not worse land or any movables. And yet we have another pasuk that includes worse movables. So if you start down here, you'll go upstairs by inference. So we have again a clash of Pesukim. One pasuk says only the best land and not the worst land or any movables. The other one says movables, worst land, no problem. It's all in. Okay, so that's how I tried to define it here. Here's our box of money, and here's all our Shavakesiv. And according to Yashiv, everything is in because it tells us with the check mark that movables are in. And if this is the hierarchy, then all these other things have to be in. And yet, here it says the only thing that's in is best land, which means all these things are out. So we've got a problem. Okay? And remember how we got here. Always important to remember how you got here. You got here because we've concluded that Rebbe Yishmael and Rebbe Akiva are arguing about what's an acceptable payment or not in damages. Okay, once we're there, Abaya, who's an Amora, you see, that's the big foundation was set by Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. They said that we're talking about what do you pay back with. Actually, they said what they said, and the Amoraim explained what they said. But once we explain their statements to say we're talking about payback, Abaya comes up and he says, okay, now if that's true, which it is true, of course, because we forced that it must be true. So now we're going to run into the problem with another pasuk, which is called Yashiv. Okay? That is clear. Very good. Good. So now let's go to the solution. But you see how it's so easy to glance over these things? You know, it's so easy just to read a line. It was a few words, ATV, nothing else. The other one says, Yashiv Rabbas Afilu Subin, and let's go on, But you have to spell things out very, very clearly because when you understand, as he says in Darkei Gemara, he says the person who understands the sickness will find the trufa, the medicine. If you understand if you have a proper diagnosis, then you know what the solution is. If you can't diagnose the thing properly, so you have wonderful solutions but have nothing to do with the problem. So we have to be very clear about the problem in order to understand what we need to solve the problem. Okay. Let us go a little further. Okay. So The Gemara answers. I mean, Abaye, he was asked a question. Rav, excuse me. Abaye asked Rav the question, and we presume that the Rav is not going to answer him. Yeah?
Right.
What does he say?
The Rav is speaking now. Lo kasha, kan midato, kan balkorcho. So Rav says it's not a kasha. It's not a this rumia.
Right. There's no contradiction.
There's no contradiction. It doesn't create a problem.
Right.
Because in one case we're talking about a free-willed payment, and in the other one we're talking about enforced payment.
Right.
Somebody.
So now, again, you're supposed to understand from those few words what is Balkorcho and Midaito. Baruch Hashem, Rashi understood that we might not get the point, so he's going to spell it out. Okay? He spells it out. What's Midaito? Rashi? I'm sorry, yeah. Midaito's first Rashi here.
Yeah. Midaito. Imeshalem lei. Mazik. Nizkoi Midato. The mazik, the damager, does not pay
if, not aim, but imishalem. Is if. You have to learn Aramaic too. Is another language you have to learn besides all the languages you probably know already. Okay.
Right. So the mazik. So if
imishalemly, yes. If the mazik
willingly pays the nizak.
Mm-hmm.
So if he does it willingly, the lo itrachi.
That's the word torach. Torach means trouble.
Tircha, right?
Yes.
Tircha. No, itrachia. It's ok alav bestin.
Bebeistin.
So bebeistin. So it's not the lo itrachia. It's he doesn't. So he doesn't have the He doesn't have the trouble of having. It's okay to yell. No. I mean,
yes.
To complain, I guess. So he doesn't have to have the trouble of bringing him to court and to complain about it.
Right. The lo
so,
itrache, he doesn't bother him. That means the mazik doesn't bother the nizak to cry out to the beis din to have him pay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If he doesn't.
Well, so the tircha here is on the nizak?
Yes. Yes.
It's not troubling the nizak. Aha.
Yeah, the nizak only wants his money. The nizak wants his money. You damaged my property. Just give me my money back and we'll be friends and everything will be wonderful, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I meant the mazik actually. In other words, he's not troubling the mazik by the itrache. It's ok alav, so he's not troubling the mazik.
1 second. Yes, the mazik doesn't bother the nizak. What does that mean? It doesn't bother the nizak? The nizak is going to be bothered because he's going to have to run to beis din to get this bum to pay the bill. Okay? So he's not causing a tircha. If he doesn't cause a tircha to the nizak, right, to force the mazik to pay in beis din. In other words, he says, okay, I'll pay midaito. I agree I did it. I will pay gladly. Let's just close it out of court, and that's it, right? So then what's the din?
Shakel suvin. So then you can just pay with suvin. You can pay with the worst form of payment, with whatever he likes. He can weigh out, I guess.
Shakel means shakel means to take. He can take subin. Yeah. In other words, the mazik, if the mazik doesn't bother the nizak to scream at him in beis din, so then he actually means here means it must be gives. He gives subin, or the nizak, let's say, will take subin. That's an interesting question. But I think the nizak takes the subin. Okay. In other words, he can, as we translate loosely, but he can pay with subin, no problem. Okay, he pays with subin. Aval.
So, but if the mazik does not want to pay him except by going to the court, which would be a case of, in other words, he's doing it he's being forced to do so.
He's being forced to pay.
Right.
The
They're
mazik is
forced
being
to,
forced to pay. That's what Bal
right.
Korcho means.
Right. The court is forcing him to pay
That's
something.
right.
So Eina Mishalom el Kesef. In that case, he must pay with Kesef. He must pay with money. He can't. He doesn't have the option to pay with whatever he likes.
So it's very interesting here because this word kesef is a surprise word. That's why I underlined it. In my edition of the Shas, there's a little star, and it says Tzarech Loma Meitav. Although Rashi says kesef,
Right.
you see? Because really the subject here is you can pay with suman. It says Meitavin Midiachin Lo, right? And yet it says you can pay with suman. So Rashi should have said, if he doesn't cause him all the pain of going to the base, then he does it willfully, then excuse me, if he does force him to, if he forces the mazik to take him to base, then so then the mazik will only pay with meitav. Rashi says kesef.
Right.
That's a surprise. I shouldn't have said kesef. So that impacts upon our question here, actually. Oops, not there. Gotta remember everything. What is the relationship of kesef and shava kesef? When the Torah, when he says meitav in midichrina lo, does Abaya mean not? He didn't say meitav karka midichrina lo. He just says meitav. So maybe Abaya, when he says meitav in, means money and land. Those are the two things that are called meitav. Okay, and they're equal. Because the pasuk, okay, meitav in midichrina lo, and maybe they're equal. And the chiddush and the kasha is, wait a minute, excuse me, the Teretz says that if you don't bother him to go to court, so you can only pay with, you can pay with anything you want. But if not, then you can only pay with money or its equivalent. Okay, that's just a little bit of a sweetening of a difficult problem here. You know, we have a problem here. Rashi should have said, if you take him to court, if you take him to court, or you force him to take you to court, the mazik, then you have to pay with best land, and if you do it willfully, then you pay with worst. Rashi throws in this monkey wrench here, kesef. So we're going to have to see what people say about that. He should have said meitav. But okay, but whatever it is, we understand here the point. The point is now, so the way that that Rava gets out of this contradiction is to say that they're talking about two different, right? One where the one pasuk, which is the Yashiv pasuk, is talking about where the mazik agrees to pay, agrees to the damage, and agrees to pay. I said, you don't have to. I will. I don't mark. You don't have to go to Beis Din. I know my animal damaged yours, and I will pay you back. So there, the pasuk says. I'm sorry. There, the pasuk says willfully. There, the pasuk says Yashiv. The Rabba Shavik Kesef Afil Suvan. Because you're a nice guy and you, say, fessed up, you confessed, and then the Torah says you can pay with anything. But if you bother you say, take me to court, and you lose, you're going to have to give away best land or i.e. Kesef. Okay, how are we going to learn that? The simple way, it's best land and nothing, and all these other things you won't be able to give. You have to give them your worst land, and any of this metaltalin and subin, that's out. So that's what Rava does. Okay, he makes a distinction between the two pesukim. They're talking about two different circumstances, willful and forced. Okay, payment. If you pay willfully, then you can use anything. Okay, that's his chilek. Let's go to the chilek. Oops, that's the chilek. Whoops, where is it? By the way, there's a lot of things here. I tried to reduce, I don't know if I mentioned to you, the Shakla into 3 colors, which is basically texts. I want to keep black, and I want to have kashas in red. It could also be shaylas, doesn't bother me, even though there's a distinction. And I want solutions in green. So I'm trying to really get down to just basics, statements, problems and solutions. And those problems are going to be, we'll make a distinction between kashas and shelas, but that's a finer distinction. Okay, so the solution of Rava. Okay, now we have Ula comes by, and what does he add to our discussion? Omar Ula Berei de Reviloi.
And Rav Ula now, Berei de Reviloi, he is backing up Rava.
Right. He's going to be bringing
Rava's
up...
no kasha.
Exactly. He's going to be now a proof that what Rava said, now Rava brought a proof, interesting enough, but he's going to bring a proof that what Rava says is correct. Okay? Let's see what his proof is.
Daika nami dichte v'sholem. I forget what daika means.
It's for the word diuk. Again, it's Aramaic for the word diuk. We can also infer this from the pasuk itself. Daika nami means also, so this also can be inferred. This is not only, again, we said, as an introduction, there's so many things to say, but as an introduction, we said things could be said because they are reasonable, or they can be said because they are written. Okay, that means svara or verse, svara or kasuv. Those are the two things. So first, Rava says what he says in svara. We're faced with a contradiction, so we're going to make the following distinction, which is very reasonable to make. But there's nothing in the text per se that leads us to that distinction. What led us to that distinction was the contradiction. The Torah, we know, can't be contradictory. It has to be coherent, as you said. So how could we make this coherence? So he said, okay, because these two pasukim are talking about two different circumstances, one where he agrees or not. But he didn't bring any proof from the text itself. Now comes along Rev Ula Berei de Reviloi, and he wants to bring a proof for this concept from the words of the text itself. Daikanama, we can also infer this to Kasiv, because it's written, Yishalem Bal Korcho. And we spoke about this Yishalem a little. We didn't get down to the nth degree of the grammar, but basically Yishalem implies that you have to pay. And then we discussed a little about the other pasukim and Yashiv, but okay, there's a lot of things to talk about. But basically, he wants to bring a proof that it says Yishalem, that he must pay. Okay? So, Abaya now, in red, is going to object to that proof. Omalei.
Abaya.
Oh, I'm sorry. We should really read that, okay?
Yeah.
Daikanami, it also can be inferred. Yeah. That what? Rashi?
The gave mesa ksiv yishalem mashme yishalem bal korcho. Because is the gave means because of or with respect to
or next to.
So
that in respect to,
right,
or concerning Meitav, or
what says Meitav, where it's written Meitav, it says Yishalem. And
in reference to Yishalem, in reference to Meitav, what does it say? Yishalem. Meitav saw the Yishalem, right? Which is mashma. We hear from that an inference that it means Bal Korcho.
Bal Korcho.
Okay. Now, it's interesting. We looked, I think, we both looked at the other pasuk. It also said Yishalem and Kesev. It says Yishalem Kesev Yoshiv L'Ba'alav. So how come then we're saying that that means that should mean Bal Korcho also? But we're going to have to answer that the Yoshiv is the word that they're medayik on. Since it had the word Yashiv, which is not Yishalem, maybe. Okay. Now this happens to also be a very big discussion. People who know all of the Torah is going to find places where Yishalem means Bal Korcho, and then we're going to say, therefore, this Yishalem also means Bal Korcho. Then we're going to see once the word Yishulam. Okay. Anyway, let's leave it at that. There are places in the Torah where the word Yishalem means he must pay in Beis Din. Okay, so the fact that that word is used here and all the other cases also means he must pay. Okay? Glancing over this whole problem of, it says Shalom over there also, and we said, but there it says Yashiv, so Yashiv comes to soften that somehow. Okay. Again, surface level. We're just getting a general concept here. We're not being exact. Okay, so Abaya doesn't like that proof from the language, the diuk in the language, inference of the language. Omele Abaya, what does he say?
It doesn't, does it say, I guess he's asking, does it say Yeshulam? It says Yeshalim, and therefore it means Medaito, means that he's doing it willingly.
Good.
I guess Yeshulam, it's a grammatical point which I don't understand, but...
well, let's read Rashi.
Obviously, yeah. Mashma al Yidei Yeshulam mashma al Yidei Acherim. Okay,
so now Yeshulam, again, grammatically, it's causative or something? I don't know. Shalem, Yeshulam, should be paid. It's mashma there that other people are causing him to pay. Okay. Then what does that mean? Very important, Rashi. What is it? What would it mean if it said Yeshulam? That based in
others are the based in Jordan le nichsal le mazik. The basin goes down into the
property, to the property. If it said Yeshulam, it means the basin goes and takes away that property. Okay, like mate of Sedehu, the basin. You've lost your free will. You know, before you could have given what you want, but now you get to court. We just found that you're guilty. Now we go down and we say to the Nizak, here, take this. It's yours. Okay. Aval Yeshalem, Rashi says. Yeshalem Mashma. This is an important word. Nami is an important word here.
Right. Also.
So it's going to turn out that Yeshalem.
Because it could mean.
Yeah, we're going to find Pesukim. Again, the depth of this learning, which I tried to talk about in the beginning, which is how deep we can go without spending many years on this subject. The depth of the learning involves the looking for how Yeshalem is used in the Chumash. And the fact is that sometimes it's used in reference to a based in, forcing someone to pay, and sometimes it's not. Okay, so since it's not always used as the based in forcing a person to pay, so Abaya says you have no hechrach that it means that here. It's true you'll find the word Yeshalem, it means force in some places, but since you also find it in other places, we see that there's no force to say it must mean you must pay through the based in. And therefore, since this word is ambivalent or can be used in two words, in two ways, in two meanings, the Torah, if it meant based in, should have clearly spelled it out by saying Yeshulam. The word has both meanings. So since it has both meanings, the only way that you would make the inference here is if the Torah would have said Yeshulam, because just by saying Yeshalem, although you will find certain times where it does mean forced, you have no proof that here is that it also means forced here. Okay, so again, what Abaya is doing is removing the proof that that Ula brought. So he says in Derek Funos that when you remove a proof, then a statement remains suffix. You haven't proved it false, but you removed the raya, and therefore you don't know if it's true or not. So since you don't know if it's true, I'm going to, says Abaya, I'll bring you a better, I'll bring you a case that will force that will force the understanding here. You just have a possibility. It's a nice possibility, but the only thing you could say about it is that it works. It solves the problem. But you have no strong proof that this is the way the Torah is wants you to understand. Okay, there's nothing written there that forces you to say that we were talking about Balkoch or Midaito. Okay, and Ula, who tried to bring a proof, is not Mukhrach. You could say it means Yishalem, Balkorcho. We have other places Yishalem means Midaito. So since you have no proof, then you haven't done your job. You have a nice idea, but we can't accept it because it's not backed up by anything, only that it solves the problem. So now Abaye is now going to present his explanation. Okay?
This is Abaye's explanation to his own...
Yes, to his own question, Ella Omer Abaye. Now, was he setting up Rava? Why didn't he bring his explanation first?
Exactly.
So I maintain, I don't think it's just a question of Derech Eretz. I think that the Gemara's presentation here is going again from a simpler answer to a more complex answer. Okay, it always starts off with KISS. Remember, do you ever hear that? Keep it simple, stupid. That's they do in the computer world. They say when you're writing a program, remember KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, so really the answers always should start with the most straightforward, simple, literal meaning, and then if they fail, then we can move to a secondary meaning. Okay, so I think that the argument here, however it was presented, it could have been presented this way, that Abaye just went over and asked him and got this answer, or it could have been in light of Rava's answer and his rejection, he thought about this new possibility, or he wouldn't have said this possibility unless he wouldn't have never said this unless a simpler possibility was rejected. Okay, so exactly again, the fine points of that debate is again something that has to be investigated. Okay, one of the things that I'm trying to bring out here also is the dramatic and delicate form of argumentation here. When you read these words, you can read the words very quickly. But until you consider those words, you don't understand the force and the power of each one of these steps. And each step is a step. And each step moves us along down the path of understanding. Okay, it's a forced move. So that's what I'm trying to bring out here. So I can, but again, with limitations, we can't go into Alavai. We could sit and we can understand all the grammar of Yishalem, look at all the Pesukim, and there are books, by the way, that all talk about it. It's not hidden information. You have the Shita Mikubetzis, and if you look in your art scroll, you'll see a little note on that. How do I know? Because my other student brought me, art scroll right away. So it's all there, these discussions, but we're just going to try to make it a little brief and not get into all the beautiful details and the back and forth of what's going on here. Okay, now Abaye comes along and he gives a new solution. Okay, the key word in the Gemara, by the way, is Ella always is a key word that indicates that the Gemara now rejects the previous position. It doesn't exist anymore. It's off the board as far as acceptable solution. Okay, so Ella Omar Abaye, we're going to reject this position of Balkorcha and Midaito, and we're going to go to Abaye's position. Let's see what it is. Ella Kidamar. Okay, let's read a little.
Kedamar means like Mar?
Like Mar. Like who is Mar? Mar, we're going to find out, is who is Mar? I think that's Rabbo. I think that's their Rebbe. I think Rashi tells us who that Mar is. I think. Hainu, you see, the Rebbe of Abaye, the Rebbe of Abaye and Rava is Rabbo with a hey. Okay? So he's going to bring a explanation of another text that doesn't seem to be talking about our situation, but the explanation of that text by Rabba will shed light on how to solve this problem. Okay? So there's always handling a problem internally, like Rava did, and then there's appealing to outside information to solve the problem. So Abaya now is going to take outside information from a discussion that his rabbi had, and he's going to apply that outside information here. So let's see how he does that.
The Tanya, so we have another brisa.
Another brisa. What does it say?
Reisha hayulo batim sadois v'karmin ve'ein motzi l'moichem. Somebody who had houses and fields and vineyards, and he did not want to sell them.
He couldn't find anyone to sell it to. Eino motze, he could not find l'mochran. He couldn't find it. He's looking around. He has to sell them, but he can't find any buyers. It happens. But people don't have money. It's the wrong season, whatever it is. Can't find any buyers. What's the din?
Is what that
You feed him.
Feed him?
Yes. Meiser ani.
So the meiser of a poor person until the halfway point.
Right.
What does that mean? What's ad mechza? Yeah.
Up to half the worth of his fields. Okay, say his field, or just make it very simple. Say he has $100 worth of property, but but it's not worth anything because he can't find any buyers. So technically, he's a rich man. Okay, he's not a poor man, but he has no one to buy them. So the law is you can give him meiser ani up to 50% of the value of all that stuff.
Who's giving him meiser ani?
Anyone who has meiser ani. Everyone. You have to give meiser sheni ani. There's the third and the sixth year, you have to take 10% of your produce and give it to the poor people. The other 2 years is meiser sheni that you have to give to the levy. I'm sorry. So in a six-year cycle, in the seventh year Shemitah, so the 6-year cycle, you do the 1 and 2. The first 2 years you give to the 10% to the levy, and then the third year you give to the poor person that 10%. Then the fourth and fifth you give again to the levy, and the sixth year you give to the poor person. Okay, I wonder if the word levy tax comes from the word levy. I just thought of that. Okay. Anyway, but whatever it is, so the law is you're allowed to give ma'aseh ani to this person. I mean, he's not an ani. Well, we're gonna see in a second how much a person has to have before he's called poor. Okay, so this person has fields. Look, he's a wealthy man, has fields and vineyards, but for some reason no one's buying it, or no one's around to buy it, or it's the wrong season. Whatever it is, he can't. No one wants his stuff. He has property, but it's not worth anything because no one wants it. So he's technically a rich man, but he can't get cash for his. He can't liquidate his property to get cash. So he's a poor man. So the rule is you treat him as a poor man up to 50% the value of his property. And we're going to see why, because of course we don't know any of the whys here, but we're going to read Rashi. He's going to tell us some of the whys. Okay, but let's read Rashi. Okay, let's read Rashi a little here. Okay. El Omer Baya.
לא משכחס תירוצה להני קרוי אלה כדומה. I'm not sure what this is saying.
It means, lo mishkacha means we won't, it cannot be found. Mishkacha means to find. Lo, like Lo motzeh. So you will not find any teretz to this kasha of these psukim, Meitav and Yoshiv, ela kidamar, except according to what Mar told us. Okay, who's Rava, and Mar is going to explain this brisa. The way Mar explained the brisa, we're going to use that as a way to solve our case. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So the only way, says Abaya, is to use what Mar taught us about this brisa. Okay, ki hai gavna the terutze rabo lahachtanya. The only way out, the only way you'll find a solution, is the same way ki hai gavna that Rabo was matais this brisa. So from the difficulty and the solution that Rabo with a hey had, his solution that he had to this brisa, we're going to use that to solve our problem in the Zikin. Okay?
Right.
Now, what did the brisa say? Misha hailo soda subatinu karamim, right? And Rashi says, Shavin Matayim Zuz. He's telling us here, the Tanan b'Maseches Peah, Mish yesh lo Matayim Zuz, lo yito leket shecho Peah u'maisa ani, delab anihu. So now here, Baruch Hashem, Rashi, who knows everything, he really knows everything, he knows everything very deeply, so he brings us a Mishnah in Peah that says a person that has 200 Zuz is not allowed to take any of the offerings, I don't know what you call it, any of the produce that's given to the poor person. We did just roofs over there, Shicha, Peah, and Maisa Ani, which are left to the poor, cannot be given to someone who has 200 zuz. Okay? Why? The lo anihu. That's the cutoff point that Torah says. 200 zuz, you're not called an ani anymore. You may not be called a rich man, but you're out of the box of ani. You can't take any of the tithes of the poor person, right? Why? Since he's not an ani, v'nimsa gazel aniyim. Very interesting. Why can't you give it to him? Because if you give a person who's not poor those tithes, that means you're stealing it from a person who is poor. Okay? So you'd be ending up stealing from a poor person, so you can't do that. Okay? 200 zuz. Now, listen to this rule. This is all in Peah. Hayulo metayim zuz chaser dina. What happens if he has 199 zuz? The din is nasnan lo shava elef zuz b'bat echad. Once he's in the box of an ani, then you can give him 1,000 zuz in one shot. Very interesting, right? I mean, we'd have to study this, but in other words, you would think, well, just give him one zuz and he's not an ani anymore. Right? Get him out of the box. Okay, now you're not ani, but no. You're allowed to give him, as long as it's one giving, you can give him up to it. You give him 1,000, 1,000 baht. You give him, and it's not called stealing from the aniyim. Because once he's technically an ani, now you're getting him out of the box of an ani. You just don't have to get him to cross the line. You're just you're making him not an ani, and that you could do by giving him 1,000 zuz in one shot. Okay, the din is v'nosnu lo shava elef zuz b'batechad hazeh yitol. He's allowed to take it. Okay, now Rashi continues. V'zeh yesh lo. This man we're talking about has batim, sodos, ukaramim, shavim matayim zuz. He has real estate, homes, fields, and vineyards that's equal to 200 zuz. But what's his problem? Aval eino matzah limkor. He would love to sell it, not be a poor person. He has no one to sell it to. The din is, the law is, machilan oso maisa ani ad maksa shava meyazuz. The law is in that Mishnah over there that you are allowed to give him produce, maisa ani, up to half the value of the property that he has. Right now the property is valueless, right? Because if you can't buy anything, what good is your property?
What if he has more than 200 zuz worth of property?
Yeah, even if he has
he
more.
Can't,
I think it's the same. Yeah, I think it's it's a cutoff point. If he has much more also, you can always give him up to half the value of his property, but that's okay. So it starts once if he has 200 or more, you can always give him half. That's what I would say simply. Okay. Anyway, that's it. Okay. You can give him up to 100. Okay. You're asking good. Let's say it's a cutoff point. Okay. Shava meyazuz. Ukasav yimchor meyazuz. Look at that. We give him 100 zuz of produce, let's say, from Maisa Ani, and we sell his property for 100 zuz. Wow.
His whole property.
We sell a whole property. We give what is that called? Going out of business sale. Right?
On sale, right.
Right? It's on sale now. Buy your property cheap, 100 zuz. And we give him 100 zuz. So now he's got exactly 200 zuz. He's not an ani anymore. Very strange, right? Now, why do we give him up to half? The tvei mi palga lo zile laolam. Land will never go down more than its value. That's a rule. In other words, you'll always have, right? You won't find buyers maybe for the real value of land, but it'll never go down to less than half its value. That's the way land is. Land always has some, that's what we call real estate. It always has some real value. It may not have its market value, but its market value will never go down more than 50%. So what you do is you tell him, look, go out and sell your land. Now, what happens if he only sells it for 20? He won't sell it for 20 zuz. He'll always get it. He may even get more. If he gets more, so we'll give him the difference, right? If he sells it for 120 zuz, so we'll give him 80 zuz of Maisani. But less than half, he'll always be able to sell it. I mean, less than half. I mean, up to half, he'll always be able to sell it as a what is that? A bargain sale. Okay. Vahara yesh lo matayim zuz. So here in this case, it's very interesting here. When he had 99 zuz, and he didn't have any land, he had no property, his sum value was 99 zuz, we're allowed to give him 1,000 zuz in one shot, right? Here, where he has real estate, but it's not worth anything, we tell him, go sell your real estate, and you're allowed to take up to 100 zuz worth of Maisa'ani. If you sell it for more, so we'll give you less Maisa, but up to 100 zuz of Maisa'ani you can take. But we don't give him more than that. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm just reading here what it says. Rashi says, so it's saying that I assume what we're talking about here is the Bezdin, right? Some kind of Bezdin, which is giving him the 100 zuz in the form of food or whatever. And they are buying his property from him.
No, they're not buying this, they're selling it. They're selling. He's going to have a sellout.
But then
his property should be sold for Meyazuz.
So then why would Rashi, I mean, then why does he say the Tafi Miflagalos, like why is it an issue that property values will not go down? I mean, why is it even a question? It doesn't matter. The guy,
well, why does it say,
okay.
Yeah, well, why does the text say that, what does the text say? The text says, Machilan oso Maisani ad meksa. We are only allowed to give him Maisani up to 100. Well, what happened? Why only up to 100? How come we're only allowed to give him up to 100? Because he should be able to sell his property. The only reason why his property not being sold because it's not an attractive deal. So he can't get the real price.
Okay.
But let him go sell it for a cut rate price. We'll make up the difference up to 100. Definitely you'll be able to say. Right now, it's a real value. People are not interested. But you have a cut, what does that call? A bargain sale. Wow, this property is 50% its value. Wow, I'm going to get that right away. I'll borrow the money. Okay. So that's the din. Very interesting enough. Okay. So now on this din, we have a problem. Rabbo, the Rebbe of Abayit, Rabbi, you had a problem. Vahavi bo Mar. Mar brought us a difficulty. Heichi dami. Wait a minute. How could we describe this case? How can this case be described? What's the problem? Ihuzel ara de kule alma v'didei nami zal bahadaihu afilu nami afilu tova nami lisfole lisfele dehor zul de kol ma'alma nami de kule alma nami. He says like this: if his property, why did his property go down in price? How come he can't find anyone to buy the stuff? Well, one possibility is that all land value has decreased. Okay, for whatever reason, land value has gone down. So, ihuzal ara the kulalma. If everybody's property value went down, what used to be 200 is only worth 100 now. It's a countrywide phenomena. Who knows, wars, whatever it is, a famine, no rain, right? So if everybody's land goes down, the didei nami zal bahadayo, and his went down accordingly because he's just part of the community of landowners. So Rabba says, afilu tuva nami lisfole. Let's give him even more than that. What happens if there's a nationwide collapse in the real estate market, and he can only get 20, if he wants to sell it, you know, there's a famine, there's wars, he can only get 20 zuzim for it. So let's give him 180 because that's the world price right now. He really is poor because that's the real value. We'll read Rashi and get that a little more clearly. Ella, so what are you forced to say? Okay.
Wait, can you just explain?
Go ahead.
I think even on a simple level.
Oh, you didn't understand this? Well, they're saying like this. If everybody's land lost value, right? So he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. Why are you saying only give him up to 50%? Let's say everybody's land now went from 200 zuz, it went down to 20 zuz. Who knows? Famine, floods, wars. No one has money, whatever, right? So why do you stop at 50%? It has to be a nationwide problem. Let's read Rashi, okay? V'hai bo mar, hainu rabo, Rashi tells us. And Mar brought us a problem, and it's the dilemma that Mar brought. He says, if this was a nationwide problem that all real estate went down, so the real price now is way lower than 50%. No one will buy it even for 20% its value. So then let's give him Meiser Ani. Let's say he can only sell it for 20 shekel now, 20 zuz. So let's feed him 180. Rashi, afilu tuva nami, more than half. Let's give him of the Meiser Ani. Why? Shahare akshav ein shava matayim zuz, because the market value of this land is not matayim zuz. It's only 20 zuz, right? If I ask you what's the market value, when we look at the market value of things, we say, well, what are things going for today? Okay, this land is not worth, maybe 5 years ago it was worth 200 zuz. But now when there's a famine and poverty and there's no, land is out, everybody's in high tech, who knows what they're into, the value is only 20 zuz. So so why not give him 180 meiser? Because the real value of the land in the market is only 20 zuz. What's the problem? You said the land normally doesn't go down 50%, right? That's under normal conditions, and give and take in the shuk. So there's what's called fluctuations in the market, right? But land normally doesn't fluctuate more than 50%. It fluctuates maybe 2%, 5%, 10%. The worst case scenario will fluctuate 100%. Okay, in the worst case scenario. But this, if there's a worldwide disaster, then it can go down below 50%. If there's a nationwide problem. So if it's a nationwide problem, let's give him 180 zuz. Why do we stop only at half? Under normal conditions, it doesn't go down under half. But under serious war conditions or whatever, it'll go down much more. So if there's no, if generally prices have decreased in land, and what used to be 200 is 20 now, so give them 180. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I still don't. It makes sense, but there's something I'm missing. I mean, there's something I don't get the rationale behind it. Something's
okay,
missing.
let's look at the other part, and we'll see a little better, maybe. Okay. V'tanan, we have a Mishnah. Rashi says. Okay, well, let's read it through, and we'll see if sometimes you just have to read a little further. V'tanan, we have a Mishnah that says what? Hayu lo matazuz chaser dina. If he has 200 zuz, less one, afilu nasno lo shava elev zuz babas echas. He told him 1,000 zuz in one shot he should take. So the question here is, what is called value? What is called a value of something? If the value of land in general has gone down, so that's called the real price of land. Normally, land fluctuates in a normal situation, right? In a normal situation, you'll have what's called fluctuation of land. It fluctuates. The most it'll ever fluctuate under normal conditions is 50%. But under unusual conditions, it can go down to 20%. So if land, what do we say? If the land value in general has gone down, so that means it's an unusual situation. It's not okay. We'll see the other side, right? So we say afilu portanami. So now he says, well, let's see the other side and see if it gets clearer. Ella. So it can't be. It's a general condition that all land has gone down. So what must it be? Ella. Because land went down, so that's the real price. So give him, if the real price of what he has is 199, 198, 150, because that's the general, 120, or even 20. That's the general price of land. So if it's the general price of land, so he's objectively a poor person now. So objectively a poor person, you can give him even 1,000 in one shot. So why you only give him? Why does it say you're limited to give him 50% in one shot? You can give him 1,000, 100, 2,000, $12 million as long as it's one shot. Once he's in the status of a poor person, because his land is not worth 200 zuz, because no land is worth 200 zuz. So then give him as much as you want. Why do you say only 50%? Ella, let's look at the other side. Maybe we clear it to us. Ella de okir ar de kule alma. So we say no. Really, it must mean that all land has gone up in value. V'didei, and his land, aidi al v'nokfach azuze, since he's going out, since he's going up and out looking for zuze, right? Because he's got to unload his land. Zal arai, his particular land has gone down. Because everybody knows when a person is nervous because he has no money, that's the best time to buy his things, right? Because he's I don't know what word they use, but you know what I mean? He's in a tight position. So people are going to take advantage of that, right? They say, look, this guy needs cash. He's ready to give up anything for cash. So I'll offer him 180, I'll offer him 50, I'll offer him 20 for his land. So if that's the reason why his land has gone down in value, then afilu portanami lo lisfale. Then don't even give him one zuz. Why? Because his real value of his land is 200 zuz. Because he's nervous and running around, he needs cash, he has to pay his bills. So people are taking advantage of him and saying, look, if you need money, you're strapped for cash, okay, we'll give you 100 zuz, 120 zuz. So in that case, he's causing his own problem. So don't give him anything. He's not called legally an ani. He's just called, in reality, a person who has driven the price of his own property down. He's not called a poor person, so don't give him anything. Let's read that in Rashi. Afilu porte, even a little bit, namilo lisfale, don't supply him even with a little bit of money. Why? Shahare shavas karkasav masayim zuz, because the real value of his property is $200. We ask you, if we would put this land on the market, and this man who's not nervously running around to Tom, Jim, and Moshe and Shlomo trying to, I need money, buy my land, buy my land. If he wasn't so nervous, so the price wouldn't go down. So he's causing his own problems by running around and being agitated. But the real value is zuz. I mean, if he was normal and quiet and calm and collected, he'd get his 200 zuz. There's people that would buy it. But because he's so nervous, I need the money, so people taking it. So he's causing his own problem. So he's not really an ani because the market value of his land is 200. He was the one that drove the price down. So if he drove the price down, it's like a guy's he had 200 zuz and he burnt 50 zuz. I'm not going to give him my ani. Just because you burnt 50 zuz, you're not a poor person. You're a meshugana. What can I say? You're in a sorry state. I wouldn't want to be there. You're in a sorry state, but you can't say you deserve money. How much money do you have? You have 200 zuz of land. You can't sell it because you're nervous and everybody's, that's your problem. It has nothing to do with objective market value. So because of this, Rabba could not understand this brisa in its simple sense. Okay, it was talking about in normal circumstances, it doesn't seem that it works. I mean, if land has gone down in general, in other words, how do we determine that a person is poor? We look at his property value, that's all. How much do you have, sir? Well, I don't have any cash, but I have this land. Well, how much is the land worth? Well, it's worth 200 zuz. But I can't find anyone to buy it because, I'm too nervous and okay, but it's worth 200 zuz. You have people to buy it, but you can't have people that want to pay 200 zuz. That's because of your problem, because you're too nervous. So get yourself a real estate agent and, hide in your back room and have him do the work. But we can't say that you're an ani now because if a normal person would go selling that field, they would get it for 200 zuz. Okay? So LMI, the real land value has gone down, and everybody who used to be, a hot shot with 200 zuz of property now only has 100 zuz because of the market value has collapsed because we said economic conditions, who knows what. So then he's objectively a poor person. Then you should give him, why only stop at 50%, at 100 zuz? It depends how far the objective value of his property is. If his property is 100, and by the way, even if his property went down 50%, the rule is that if a person is objectively poor, i.e. has 199 zuz, then you can give him 1,000 zuz. So why here we're only limited to give him, no, you must not give him more than 100 zuz. Why? If everybody's land is devalued, so he objectively, in an objective scale, we get the assessor in how much you're worth. You're worth 200 zuz. Or objectively you're worth 180 because all land has gone down. So if you're worth 180 zuz, then I should be able to give you 1,000 zuz now. So what's this business of only giving you 100 zuz? So Rabba was stopped. Okay? So let's see what he answers. Omar Marla, but Mar gave the following solution. He said, I'm going to explain to you now this brisa. It can't mean simply that he just he couldn't find anyone to sell, because it depends why he couldn't find anyone to sell. If he couldn't find anyone to sell because the market value of land has gone down and no one's buying land, so give him as much as you can give him 1,000 zuz. If he couldn't find anyone to sell because he's running around like a meshugana and give me money, so that's his problem. He's objectively worse. It's just he's making his own bed. Okay, let's see what Rashi says. Oh yes, okay. So now to solve this brisa, Mar came to the following explanation. Va'oma Mar lav. I just want to move a little quickly. V'oma Mar lav. So Mar said about this brisa, I'm going to tell you what the meaning of this brisa is. Lo nitzricha, we only said this 50 zuz limit that you can give him a maisa ani. It's talking about diyom nisan yikra arasa. There's a normal fluctuation, a seasonal fluctuation in land. In Nisan, land goes up in value, because that's where people can plow and seed, waiting for the rains in Tishrei. Takes a long time to plow, not like nowadays. I just spoke to a, I spoke to a mashgiach, one of these guys in Weidberg's mashgiach. He says, wow, it's really unbelievable. He went to Morocco, of all places. Normally, you don't have to worry about orlo because the trees don't produce fruit in 3 years. He says, I saw olive trees that were producing fruit way earlier. So now that we have all these Gilui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a lot of new problems that are coming up here. But anyway, normally in the old days, the good old days, you needed a long time to plow your field. It was work. You had to get the donkeys and the whatever you use there the oxen with the owl and go up and down the rows. You see the Arabs do it today. Although they learned a lot from the Jews, but the point is, what do you normally, after you do the harvest, in Nisan you start plowing your fields and then you plant. In Israel, there's only 2 seasons: a dry season and a wet season. So in the dry season, you do your plowing and your planting, and then by Tishrei, when the rains start to come, so then you're all set. But in Tishrei, no one buys land because they won't have enough time to plow it and seed it. So they have to wait a whole other year before they see any money to it. So it's not worth it to buy land at that time. So the price automatically goes down in that season. So we're discovering here a fact that Rob was applying to this text, that we're talking, the reason why this guy it can't sell the land is because he's in the wrong season. That's why it went down. So let's spell it out. The biyoma Nisan Yikra Arasa. Normally the price goes up in Nisan when land prices go up because that's the time you're already preparing for the next harvest. Ubiyoma Tishrei Zilar. And in Tishrei, land prices fall because you have no time to do your plowing and seeding. So what happens? The Kule Alma Nitre Ad Nisan Umizbane. So what does a normal person who have land does? He waits, Nitre, he waits till Nisan to sell his land. That's what normal people do. They don't sell their land in Tishrei. Doesn't pay because the price is down. So you wait till Nisan to sell your land. Vahai, but this guy, Hoel ve'itzricha lezuze, because he needs money, cash, zav g'dahashta. So he's willing now to sell his land for the low Tishrei price. So that's why the Mishnah says, Ad palga arasa lemizal. The seasonal adjustment, the seasonal deflation, or if that's the right word, decrease in land value, it never goes more than 50% between Tishrei and Nisan. So that's why the Mishnah, which is talking about in winter, says unto half, it normally does go down. It's not his fault. Tvei, but more than half, low orche lamisel. It doesn't normally go down. So that's why we are now giving a limit of 50%. Here's a poor guy. He just, for some reason, lost his liquid capital and he had to sell his sell his land. And it happened in Tishrei. So we say, what's the real value of your land? Right now, the real value of your land is 50% of its value, but not less. It can't go down. So we'll tell you, you're allowed to eat maisa'ana. You're considered a poor person up to the value, up to the market value now of the land, which means, let's say normally it fluctuates from 200 zuz in Nisan to 175 in Tishrei. So if you go out and sell it for 175, we'll give you 25 maisa'ani. Okay. So, but more than that, we can't give you more than a 50% reduction because that must be your doing again. If you can't sell it for half price already, so that's way beyond the normal seasonal fluctuation. So let's read that on the side here. The biyame the Nisan yikra arasa. In Nisan, land goes up. Why? Mipnei shehalokeach nir, a person who takes a nir as an unplowed field. Choresho so b'yamotites. He does his plowing in the summertime. Okay, you did all your harvesting. Now you want to plow for the next year. What do you do it in a nice summertime when it's warm and it's easy to do? And then Vizaran, he does the seeding right before the rains come, B'Tishrei and Mar Cheshvan. That's right after we say Mashiv Ruach Hamor Goshim, right after Sukkot, we're praying for the rains. That's when the rains come. So normally you do in the summer, you take care of all your fields, you do your plowing, and then the rains come when it's already seeded. So what do you do? So he said like this: near a person who buys a empty field, he plows it in the summertime. V'zaran b'tishrei u'macheshvan. He does the seeding in the tishrei and macheshvan. Ubiyom tishrei. So now normally unplowed field, zeal, land goes down. Why? She'ain sipik l'zaran ba'oso shana. Because you can't an unplowed field that someone wants to sell now, there's nothing you can do with it because you won't have enough time to prepare it for the seeding. Okay, so, and this guy now that we're talking about in the Brisa, Zavin Kahash, he has to sell his stuff now when in Tishrei. Unfortunately, he needs money. He had a lot of bills to pay, did some bad business deals, happens to be Tishrei, and he has to go sell in Tishrei. Bishum de Itzrich Zuzeh, because he needs the money. So, Hilkach, Ani lo have, he's not considered an Ani, the Yitol Shaveh Elav Zuz. Hoel ubiyoma Nisan Shavas Karkasav Messiah. Very interesting. Very interesting. If he was an Ani, we said, that has 199 zuz, we could give him 1,000 zuz. But this guy is not considered technically a full-fledged Ani. Why? Because no one sells land now. And the only reason why he's selling it is because he's strapped for cash. But people, you normally wait to Nissan. So the real value of this land, since no one sells land now, the real value of the land is the Nissan price of 200 zuz, right? So he's not really an Ani that we can give him Elef zuz because the real value of the land that he has 200 zuz. It's just technically now he needs the money, so he has to sell it now. But so Hilkach Ani lo havi litol shava elav zuz hol ubiyom nisan shavas karkasav matayim. He's not really called a poor person because this is the real value of this land is considered 200 zuz because no one sells it now and its real value is determined by Nisan. However, Asher lo havi, he's really not called an Asher either. Hoil v'kule almanami lo havi shen hashta matayim, because he's not really called a rich person now because the real price, the actual price right now of the whole world is also not 200 zuz. So he's a middle box here. It's very interesting. He's a middle box because no one sells the land now, so technically anyone who has land is a person who has 200 zuz. Just has to wait a little while. But he's not really called an usher now because as far as the actual market price right now, not what people really do, but the present market price is very low. But that's the price Kuli Alma. Everybody's market price is low, not only his, but that's why people never sell it now normally. So he's not really called an usher now because the real street price is not 200 zuz. So according to the actual street price, it's not 200 zuz. But according to the real price, which is the land in Nissan, he is an usher. So Hilkach, so what's the din? Mishalmin lo ad matim. So we allow him to eat 100 zuz of Maisa Ani. That's the maksa. Why? Because seasonal adjustments of land is the normal seasonal adjustment of land is up to 50%. In other words, the difference between winter and summer is never more than 50%. So the normal devaluation of this land because of the seasonal change in the winter is up to 100. So since that's the real devaluation of the land, so we give them up to 100 zuz. Okay, so that is the problem that Rava had with the Brisa, and that's the solution he came to. What does it have to do with us? Woo, that was a long time ago. How is that going to help us with Meitav and Yoshiv? How is it going to help us, right? Hachanami. Here too in our case, Gabi Nazikin. We're going to explain the collision of these two Pesukim also. Really, Dina Be'idis. The law is that you're supposed to pay with Edis. And we're going to have to spell all this out. V'i omale ihu. But what happens when Isaac says, Havli beininis tvei porta? Okay. So let's talk about, first of all, we're going to be talking about the winter now, right? The damage happened in Tishrei, right? When land values are very, very low. Now the Torah said that he's allowed to take Meitav Karka, right? Very good. So he goes to the Mazik and he says, okay, instead of giving me the Meitav Karka, I would like you to give me Beinanis Karka, but a little larger piece of land. You owe me 100 zuz, right, for the damage that you did. So instead of giving me 1 acre of prime land, give me 2 acres of your grade B land, your Beinanis land, right? Because that's also worth 100 now, right?
In Tishrei.
In Tishrei. We're in Tishrei now. Now remember, Tishrei, land that was worth 200, let's say, worst case scenario, is worth 100 now, right? So say the best land is worth 100, but medium land, which is normally worth 180 in let's say 180 in Nissan, is worth 80 now, right? So he says, look, well, for whatever reason, I'd like some Beinanis land, and just make it up by giving me a larger area. So he's getting this windfall of land in Beinanis terms. So the Mazik can say, Ishakalta kedincha shakal kedahashta. If you have din, which is Meitav, I will give you the very, very low winter price, because that's the price of the land right now. V'i low, but if you want Beinanis land, then Shakil, you'll have to take it kediyukul dekame. You'll have to take it at the summer price. That's what he says. Let's see if we can, you get what he's saying to him. We have to work all that out. Okay. Basically saying, look, now there's in winter, land prices have fallen, and this guy unfortunately damaged someone in winter. So now he's going to have to give a lot of land back, right? Because to get that $100 now, let's say the 200 zuz now, you're going to have to give, let's say, worst case scenario, twice as much land to get to that 200 zuz, because it's only worth 100 zuz now. So you have to give him twice as much area to pay the bill off for the damage, right? So the guy comes over, the Nizar comes over, he says, you know something, I don't want your best land, I want your Beinanis land. So the Mazik is allowed to say, wait a minute, your din is Meitav, and I'm forced now to give you Meitav at this very low winter price. But the Torah says, Meitavin min yachmina lo, which now you see what the original says. Abaya says, what's the min yachrina? The Beinanis land. That I don't have to give you the cheap price. If you want that, then that's going to be Yoshiv price, the real price. The real value of this land is the Nissan price. So the fact that I have to pay you in Meitav land, the Torah says, okay, I have to give you Meitav land in the winter. But that's only the Meitav land. Anything else, Beinanis and Zibris land, I'm gonna give it to you at its Nissan price.
Is it because it would be worth more in if you gave it to him at the Tishrei price, it would be worth more next Nissan?
No, it means he has to give him less land. It is worth more.
Right.
But practically it means giving him less land. But if he pays him at Nissan price, it's giving him less land.
But is that less land? I mean, when we're going back. I mean, if we're projecting to next Nissan,
right?
Is he giving him less land? Is he giving him less altogether?
No, he's not giving him less, because no one, let's see, it's very hard to use the word real value. there's two values of land. There's the what can I say, the practical value, or I don't know what you're going to say that. It's very hard to say real. No one, the real value of land is the Nissan price, because no one sells it now. Unless you have to sell out of it. No one sells land in the winter, because they know it just, they're going to get a junky price. Everybody waits till Nissan to sell the land. So the real value of land is the Nissan price, because that's the price that everybody waits to get. No one in his right mind would sell it in winter. So when a person has land, you ask them how much are you worth. You say this land is worth, even though it's the winter, it's worth in Nissan 200 zuz. That's the price. That's what it's worth. That's how I am a man that has 200 zuz in the bank. That's the real value of this land. If you put it down when the tax man comes or the assessor comes, how much are you worth? You're worth 200 zuz. Now, this guy is forced to sell now where no one else is forced to sell, because he needs money. So the street value, which is what you can get right now in Tishrei, happens to be 100 zuz. But it's not really, it's not the real value of the land. The real value of land is 200 zuz, but you only get in Tishrei. So there's a middle zone here in land, in this poor person, On one hand, he's rich because no one sells the land now. In the other hand, he's poor because he needs money, has to sell the land. So we're going to give him only up to 100 to cover the seasonal adjustment cost, but that's it. So now in Nezikin, we're going to say the same. Abaya pulls out this explanation of Rava, which is talking about a different case altogether, talking about Maisa Ani. But what did it reveal? It revealed a nature in land. That land has two prices, which are totally legitimate. It has its winter and its summer price. So now, what does it have to do with Nezikin? Since land has this variation, the Torah says you have to give him the best land, but when it goes down in price, a normal devaluation in the winter, you don't have to give, you have to give him the best land, but nothing else. Let's see how Rashi spells it out, okay? Baruch Hashem, he speaks very, very clearly on this point, okay? Okay. Hachagabi Nezikin. Nami bahachi mitartzukro. We're going to use the teretz that Rava gave to this case of Ani to explain the contradiction between Meitav and Subin and Yoshev. How do we do it? Kagon de biyoma de Nisan yikra arasa. We're going to say also the fact is that land is more valuable in Nisan. Will biyoma de Tishrei zol, and land goes down naturally in winter. What happens in our case of damage? The hizik betishrei shavamana. And this unfortunate fellow, his cow damaged another cow worth 100 mana, 100 zuz, okay, in Tishrei. It was a winter damage, 100 zuz he owes to the Nizak. Now, ubo ligvos mana mikarkas of hamazik. So now the Nizak wants to collect the 100 due to him from the land of Nazik. What's the din? V'dino be'idus. And his din is the Nizak is allowed to take the best property. As it says, Meitav Sedei or Meitav Karma Yishalem, which means, another very important point here. Now we want to ask who's in the driving seat here? Is it what the Mazik is allowed to give, or what the Nizak is allowed to take? Here Rashi is explaining that the Chiddush of Abaya is, we're talking about what the Nizak is allowed to take. When the Torah says Meitav Sedei or Meitav Karmo, it says that the Nizak is allowed to take Meitav. That's his din. In other words, he can force, he can agree on anything he wants. That's another story. But he's allowed to go to the Mazik and say, I want your best land. So if he goes to the mazik and he says, okay, the Torah says I'm allowed to come to you, Mr. Mazik, and say, expropriate your best land for this payment. Very good. So, but the mazik now is in a dilemma because this land is technically worth much more than what he is about to pay off his debt to, right? It just so happens that it's the winter and he has to pay his debt. Normally he wouldn't want to pay that debt, but he has to. So the Torah says to him, Meitav. The Nizak can come and collect Meitav. So the Mazik says, okay, Meitav I have to give you because the Torah says I have to give you Meitav. Even in the winter, the Torah says Meitav, Meitav, Meitav. But the Nizak comes and he says, you know something? I know the Torah says I could take your Mesa, your best, but I want to take the b19 and just make it up by giving me a little more b19 land than you would. Okay? So here, the Mazik can say, if the Nizak says, you know something? Havli mi b19, kedahashta, tvei porta. He says, you know something? I want the winter price, but I don't want your Meitav, which I could take Al Pidin. I want your b19 and just give me a little larger surface area of b19. Mimai de boy le Meisav, give me a little more surface area of land than you would have had to pay me if you paid me the $100 in Idis. Okay? So the din is lo matzah l'kfiyah. The Nizak can't force the Mazik to give him b19 at the winter price. Ella, what happens? Omele mazik, the mazik is allowed to say, Ishakalta be'idis, if you want to take your idis ki dincha, like the Torah says, then shakel ki hashta. Now you can have the low winter price. Ve'ilo shakel, but if you don't want to take your din Torah, mi b19 kediyuka kame. Ve'ilo, and if you don't want your din of Meitav, then shakel mi b19 kediyuka lekame. You take your b19 from as if it, in other words, the real value, which is the summer value. Excuse me, the real value, exactly, the summer value. Okay, if you want b19.
I don't quite get the. I don't really see what the difference is in the loss. I mean, if he's going to be, let me just spell it out mathematically. Maybe he has two pieces of land. He has Idis and b19, and let's say a Nissan. Maybe I'll try to keep it simple in terms of time.
Yeah, let's just make some numbers here.
Okay, so let's say in Nissan, he has a piece of land that Idis land that Nissan is worth 100.
Right. And
he has a larger piece of land that in Nissan is worth also 100. But it's double the land, let's say.
Well, let's give it prices. Let's talk about Edis land, okay? Meitav land. Okay? In the winter, let's take the worst case. Let's say it goes from 50 to 100 in the winter, the best land, okay? Let's just say. We don't know. Tishrei, okay. The low price is 50, and Nissan it's 100, okay?
Good. Okay, good.
Okay.
So now let's say b19 land would be during Nissan. For like this, I would say like this.
Let's say 80-40.
No, because I want to make it like this. Okay. In Nissan, he has 100 zuz for a nice piece of Idis land, and without specifying how big it is. Now, in the same period, Nissan, b19 land for 100 zuz, same amount of money.
Right.
He's going to get a lot. He's going to get, let's say, double the
area
that he would get. Double the area, exactly.
Okay, so let's say b19, I'm just writing it down. B19 is worth yeah, but let's say it's worth let's say 100, but it's worth let's say he gets 2 acres. Okay, just for say Nissan, he'll get 1 acre for 100.
1 acre. Okay, good.
Okay, just make it simple, right?
Right.
1 acre for 100, and b19 he'll get 2 acres.
2 acres.
Make it simple. Okay, and for that same $100 that he owes.
Right. So now let's say in Tishrei.
Yes.
For the same piece of Nissan acre, of Idis,
right.
He would get 50 zuz.
Yes.
because it's gone down in price. Is this right?
Right.
Now let's say in the same period of
So
Tishrei,
he'll have to give him 2 acres of Idis
right?
now, right?
Okay. 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 Now, and let's say all the same kind of proportionately, the same thing happens to the b19 land. In other words, in Tishrei, those 2 acres are no longer worth 100; they're worth 50.
Right.
So now the Nizak says, look, I want now in Tishrei, I want b19, I don't want Idis. In other words, give me, you really owe me, like according to the strict letter of the law, right now you owe me 2 acres of Idis land, because really it's Tishrei. And if this happened in Nisan, you'd give me 1 acre. But now it's Tishrei, too bad for you. You got to give me 2 acres of land,
Right.
which is 50 zuz. Is 50 zuz each. Really, it's worth 100 zuz, and that would be the same for if it was 1 acre in Nisan. So
Right.
he says, no, I don't want that. I want you to pay me in b19. In other words, I want 4 acres of b19 land, which is equal to 100 zuz.
That's right.
So now I'm not thinking now from the standpoint of the mazik. Mazik is thinking, wait a minute, what's worse for me to give up here? Should I be giving up 4 acres of b19 land, or should I give up 2 acres of Idis land?
Right.
Right. So I'm thinking, does it really matter? Because granted, 4 acres right now in Tishrei is worth the same thing as 2 acres in Tishrei of Idis. But if we throw it back on Nisan, it's also the same. 4 acres of b19 is also equal to 2 acres of Idis in Nisan. So why would I hesitate? It's the same to me. It's the same value anyway. Mathematically, it works out to the same anyway.
Okay. So my answer to you is that it's, even though the price, there's a difference in price. I think we discussed this a little. Well, let's talk it out. My first answer to you would be that people would always like better land because it's easier to work.
Right.
So you'll say, well, isn't that factored into the price?
Exactly.
Well, in a certain way,
that's what it's all about.
well, that's usually, yeah, but in a certain way, it's true that it's factored into the price, but it's not factored into the desirability. In other words, I would rather have better land and not work as hard than have cheaper land and work harder. Even though, in the end of the day, it's factored in, and that's why the value goes down in the b19 land than the Idis land, right? So when as far as selling it is concerned, it's lower, it's less value because you have to work more. But as far as using it is concerned, right, I'd much rather hold on to my good land, which I will use in a much easier way than the bad land. In other words, it's not the mathematical value is not equivalent to the real value of the land, to the quality of the land.
But
also,
by that logic, so Kal v'chomer, by that logic, I'd be happier to get rid of my b19 land, even though it is admittedly double the amount of land. From the standpoint of the mazik now, who's paying up, so he's saying, look, I like Idis land better. So you want b19? Fine, I'd rather do b19.
Yes, but because the mazik now, since it's winter, standing to lose too much money. In other words, in the winter, it's not I have to pay you the bill because the winter and I damaged you in the winter, so I must pay you now, right? But that's not the real value of the land. It's not the real price now. I'm forced to pay you, and I have to pay you the best now. Okay, I'm forced to pay you. What am I going to do? But I don't want you to get the benefit of winter prices in anything else than what I'm forced to pay. Why should I give you winter prices for my b19 land?
But it's the same if I'm giving him Idis land. I mean, I
It
mean, I
is
could be
land. I
resentful.
don't. The real truth. The real truth is, I don't want to give you the Yiddish land either. I want to
Right,
wait. I want to wait till Nissan.
right. But
I don't want to give you the
I
Yiddish land.
just don't.
But the
I don't
Torah
see the
says,
advantage.
I must give him my best land. Now you have to ask the question: why does the Torah say in winter I have to give him the best land? Why doesn't the Torah say, wait till pay your bill off in Nissan? What's the
Okay,
problem?
that's another, yeah, right.
So
Okay, but if we don't take that route, I mean,
I think we have to take that route to explain your question. Your
okay,
question is very, very valid. So, and I think the answer is like this. The Torah, again, we're saying ideas, svars. The Torah wants, what does the Nizak want? The Nizak wants money. Now, the reason why the Torah says you have to give the best land, if you give land and not money, either you don't have money or it's a choice, we have to also clarify that point. But the reason why the Torah said you, the mazik, have to pay the nizak with the best land is because the best land is the easiest thing to sell, no matter what season it is. And that's why the Torah says if you're going to give him land, give him the best land, because it's the nizak wants his money, and he'll get his money back the best with the best land. Now, he doesn't want the money, obviously, because if he wanted the money, he would say, give me the best land, and I'll sell it now and get my money, because really all I want you damaged my cow. I want my cow back. I don't want land. I don't want nothing. I want my cow. So the Torah said, give me money, I'll go buy a cow, right? So you are going to give me land now. So give me land, which is the easiest to get rid of, which is your best land. Right? So that's the Torah is considering that the Nizak wants his money, and the Torah says, Meitav, give him the best land so he'll get his money back very quickly. Now he comes to us and says, you know something, I'm not so excited about the best land because I don't want to sell it. I have some other agenda. For instance, I want some b19 land. I think we're actually going to say it a little while. The b19 land is next to my farm, and your Idis land is, another, half a kilometer away. So I'd rather have b19 land because I want to use the land. I don't want to sell the land. If I want to sell the land, I can sell the land. It doesn't matter where it is. But I want to use the land. You want to use the land. If you want to use the land, you don't want to sell the land, so pay the real value of the land, which is the price in Nissan.
It must be, okay, wait, so it must be that if Rashi has, and it makes sense that we have to introduce another factor, whatever it might be. It's closer to his property, he likes the trees on it.
Let's read Rashi. I hate to...
It has to be another factor.
Yes, exactly, because you're right. Mathematically, there's no difference.
So what I assume then is that likewise, there has to be another factor from the standpoint of the mazik, who has to, because I don't understand otherwise what he has to lose. But he gets offended. He says, no, I'm not going to give you that.
No, the mazik is losing. You mean why the mazik doesn't want to give up his b19 land, you're asking?
His b19, yeah. There has to be another factor for him too. Otherwise, why would he care? It doesn't make sense if we're only talking about pure abstract value. What does it matter? It doesn't matter either way, whether it's summer or winter, double, single. It doesn't matter. It must be an external factor, just like there is one for the Nizak.
You will agree that the mazik has to pay this debt off with a lot more land than he would in Nissan, right?
Yeah, but
whether it's b19 or it's Zibris, he definitely has to give a lot of his land away.
But it doesn't matter if from the standpoint of value. I'm saying there has to be another factor. From the standpoint of value, we work it out to the same, and I mean it all works out to the same.
Right.
Whatever season it is. So there has to be extenuating circumstances here. just like if Rashi is introducing it for the Nizak, because also I don't understand why would the Nizak say that.
The mazik, let's just work this out. The mazik doesn't want to pay any land, right? Let's make it simple. All he has is land. He doesn't want to give away any of his land today in Nissan, right? because it's not because he's getting ripped off, so to speak, because no one sells now. The real value of this land is the Nissan price, so he's getting ripped off, this mazik, right? If you look at the side of the mazik, he's getting ripped off. Let's be normal about it. Let's wait till Nissan. I'll pay you in Nissan when the real price is that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? He doesn't want to give any of his land now. It's not easy. He's going to lose. He's going to take a big loss, whether it's idus or bainness, right? So for him, he doesn't want to give any land at all. He wants to wait till Nissan, and he'll give less land, which that's clearly in his advantage, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, however, he's a shlemazel, and unfortunately, he owes this nizak money now for that, right? So he's going to have to give his land away because the damage happened now, and he has to pay the bill now.
Right.
Okay. Now what's the difference between him if he gives bainness or zibris or bainness or idis, you say? Well, he doesn't want to give anything. He doesn't want to give a single piece of land. He wants to wait till Nissan. So the mazik comes over, so the Torah comes over and says, you know something? Not only do you can't give your medium land, you only can give your best land. You can't give your medium land now. Why does the Torah say that? The Torah says that the Torah says you must mazik give the best land to the nizak.
Right.
You don't want to give any land because you're losing a lot of money now because it's just unnatural that you should be just your shlemazel. You happen now, but you don't want to give your land away. Wait till Nissan. So the Torah says, you know something? You got to pay him now with your best land. Why? Because it's the middle of the winter, and the best way that the nizak is going to get his money back is if he gets the best land, because then he'll sell it right away and he'll get his money back. Right? So now the nizak is got his das. Now he says, you know something? For whatever reason, I don't want to sell the land. I'm looking for not the price of the land. I'm looking for the use of the land. Right? It's next to my place. Whatever the story is, it happens to be a road that's convenient for me to go to my chickens. Whatever the story is, I would rather have that bainness land because it's more useful to me. Not that I want to sell it; it's more useful to me. So the Torah says the reason why we're giving you bainness, is only because we want you, the nizak, to get your money back.
Right.
But if you don't want to get your money back, so then you got to pay. Then you got to pay for his bainness at the real price. Right. So you'll say, well, what is the mazik losing? What does he care if he loses idis or bainness? That's what you're telling me again. What does he care? What's the difference if he's losing a little bit of? I mean, he has to give a little more idis or a lot more of bainness. What does he care? It's the same amount of money.
Right. It must be that he also is interested in use. That's also a factor for him. I guess he just doesn't want to be strong-armed into the position of having to sell anything, at the will of the nizak. I mean, the nizak could dictate whatever he wants. He could say, look, I want zibris, I want this, I want that. So it must be that the mazik is being protected with regards to usage, because he also has his cheshbonis about what's useful to him or not. So he says, look, according to the letter of law, I got to give you whatever can be translated into liquid capital right away. But don't start telling me, what I have to give you when I myself have other considerations just like you. Okay. So in other words, it's like shava kesef is really the issue, right? I'll give you whatever the land is really kesef here, essentially. And if you start dictating considerations beyond what is shava kesef of the land, then that's just not fair. It's not fair to the mazik as the payer.
Right.
There must be.
I hear what you're saying.
So that's what it is.
You're saying he also has use in mind.
Right. Right.
Maybe I want the maintenance. Maybe I want it because it's more convenient to me. Why should I have to give it to you? Let's see what Rashi says over here. It's very interesting. Let's see what Rashi says.
This is why you pointed out last time. Now I just had a little light bulb go off. This explains why Rashi says kesef instead of meta, right? Or might explain why.
Might, because he's listening. Yes,
yeah,
because he's looking
right,
at value. He's looking at
right.
at money value. He's looking at money. That's what's really. He's looking at value. He's not looking at use. Well, let's just read this Rashi. Maybe I think Rashi maybe even spell this out a little bit. Let's see. He says like this. Ulahachi like this. Okay. So he says. He says, "Vi omale nizak havli mi beinanis kedahashta tveport." The same advantage in beinanis land. Mimai the boy lemesav liba edis. The same price now I want in beinanis land. So the din is lo matzi lekvia. He can't force the mazik to do that, to give him the beinanis land at that price. Okay. Ella, omale mazik. The mazik's allowed to say, Ishakalta be'idis kidincha shakol kihashta. If you take the idis, your din, so then you are allowed to take the very low winter price. V low, but if you don't want it, the idis, like your din, so shakol mi beinanis kediyukla kame. You have to take the beinanis at its price in Nisan. And Rashi continues. They're very important. Ulahachi asi yashiv lerabos subin. Now, because of this, we needed the pasuk to tell us that the mazik, or whoever will see, that the mazik can pay in subin. Why? The ibor mishkal nizak subin. If the nizak wants to take subin, what does that mean? Kagon sheyesh lo karka samach laoso beinanis shel mazik. The nizak has karka, which is near the property, the beinanis property of the mazik, as we said, right? He wants right next door to the nizak's land happens to be a beautiful piece of beinanis land. So that's convenient instead of having to skip over and to go another half a kilometer. His beinanis is right next to the nizak's beinanis is right next to the mazik's beinanis next to his land. V'nichale bo, and therefore it's better for the nizak to get beinanis land closer to his territory. So the din is shakol la kediyuka de kameh. He has to pay the higher price. Why? Doho shavekesiv hu benisan. Because this is shavekesiv. When I say what is this worth? Well, it's shavekesiv. The real value is its Nisan price. So what is Rashi saying? Rashi's saying that this Yashiv pasuk is coming to tell us that he has to pay for beinanis at the Nisan price, which means the real Shavit Kesef of this property is the Nisan price. We haven't explained why yet, okay, in answer to your question, but let's just slip just as
well, no, it does make sense because the Nichaleba is really he's paying for Nichaleba. He's paying for convenience, which is all year round. In other words, if
yeah, but why does and this is what you added? Why does the mazik also? Why can he stop that?
For his own reasons.
For his own convenience.
If the nizak is thinking about, I mean, it makes sense because if he's saying, look, I don't need it. I don't want to turn it into the capital. I need it all year round. Well, you need it all year round, so pay for the Nissan price.
Right.
Don't give it.
And that's the Chiddush of Yashiv. But listen to this, that's the Chiddush of Yashiv. Yashiv means I wish we had a good word for the real value. The real value of this land is really the Nissan value. There's real value and actual value. It's almost the same word. I can't, potential value. I don't know. The real value, if we ask you what's called Shavit Kesef. So Shavit Kesef in this land is the Nissan price. what's called the present price. So that's called the present price. Nothing to do with the real price, because if no one sell the present price not worth it, no one would sell anything now. So it's really its real market value is not the Nissan. You don't say the real market value of the land is the winter price. The real market value of the land is the summer price. So the chiddush of Yashiv is that you are going to pay for Baininus at the Nissan price. Why? Let's read Rashi. Now listen to this. Let's read Rashi. Rashi is also struggling with this. He's explaining. Whenever Rashi writes long, it needs explanation. This is why Abaya had to set up the situation in Nezikin, talking about the winter-summer thing. Kedam, as we said. Why? I.e., the sofa liyakeh b'Nisan, right? He had to set up the case that we're talking about for Shaveh Kesef is when it's going to go up in Nisan, when the damage was done in winter. Mishum de'i ain't sofa liyikar. If the land did not go up in value. Kro, and I wrote in my gray, Yashiv, lama li asa, what do I need a pasuk for? To tell me even Subin. Why? And I put this in red. Peshita de'i boy nizak la mishkal Subin shakol bal kocha shel hamazik. Shafilu be'idis yafe kocho. Kol shechein beininus. This is an important little Rashi here, as every Rashi is. He says, let's just translate the words, because if the land does not go up in value, let's say we're talking about the Amazon where there's no fluctuation of land. So then, if that's true, so then why do I need the pasuk of Yashiv? Why? I can have just had the pasuk of Meitav and I would learn all the dinim. Why? Because Peshita de'i boy nizak lemishkal subin. It would be obvious that if the mishkal, if the nizak takes subin, he can take it bal korcho from the mazik. How do we know? Shafilu be'idis yafi kocho. Even idis, the Torah says he can take. So kol shekein beininus. Wait a minute. Let's understand that. Wow. When the Torah says meitav, it means that the nizak can take up to meitav. That's how Rashi is explaining it. Meitav doesn't mean meitav in midiachrina lo. It means I can get up to meitav. If the Torah allows me to take meitav, so certainly it should allow me to take beininus. Why not? If I could take the best land, certainly if I wanted to, if I could force you to give me your best land, I should be able to force you to give me your beininus land. Why not? Let's presume that, forget about the real value of things, that good land is always more preferable, either because it's easier to work or whatever. It's easier to work, it produces better fruit, it's easier to sell, it's more kavod and more status, whatever the reason exact is, right? So if the Torah says the nizak can take fully the best land, so certainly he should be able to take the beininus or zibris land. So if there was no difference in price between beininus and zibris, Rashi's saying, I would not need the pasuk of Yoshiv. I could learn that the nizak can take whatever he wants up to meitav. So it must be, says Abai, that we're talking about land fluctuations. And the chiddush is of Yashiv is that when you take Ziboris, which is beininus, look at all these interpretations we're getting. When you're taking Ziboris, you can take it. You must take it at the Yashiv price. Wow.
Right. It's, you know, it means then that the Yoshiv Posuk, its function is to take into account that there's more than just money value at stake here. Because if we didn't have the Yoshiv Posuk, we would just look very abstractly no, sorry, not abstractly. We'd say he can take it. He can take the best line. Therefore, he can take anything he wants. He just has a free hand to go in there and take whatever he wants at will of the mazik's property that is equal to that amount. So Yashiv really protects the mazik from that, because there are other considerations other than just pure value. So it gets that's why Yashiv introduces a translation. Yashiv translates it into all kinds of other things, into Kesef, into Subin, into whatever. And that's a way of protecting the mazik.
Right. Now let's look 100%. Wow. No, to me, what's always amazing is that such a, look, at first glance, such a far-out comparison can make any sense at all. You know, when you first look at this, well, wait, talking about land and fluctuate, what's that have to do with the Pesukim? And then when you're inside, all of a sudden there's like a light that, hey, wait a minute, this is a very interesting concept here. That really, we do have to protect the mazik. Now that always amazes me, that things which are l'chara so strange turned out to be very reasonable with a certain light. Okay, in a certain aspect. Okay, but let's look at our interpretation of Abaya. Abaya originally said meitav'in midiachmin lo, right? So now, how does Abaya now going to learn meitav'in midiachmin lo? Just spell it out. But what you're supposed to do in Dr. Gemara says, always go back after you understand the interpretation, is put it back into the original text. So Abaya made a deal from the pasuk, meitav'in midiachmin lo. Now, what does that mean now, according to Abaya?
Well, so that now becomes a protective statement. Well, yeah, it means that meitav is what he's obliged to do, but don't obligate him beyond meitav. Like don't open up just because meitav is the best possible thing from a strictly economic standpoint, or it's not really economic, from a strictly commercial standpoint. The low, Idi on low, is really protecting him and saying, look, don't start taking anything you like. It's like, you know, it's like introducing an ethical dimension into commerce here. It's saying don't look abstractly at things just from their commercial value standpoint, you know, and do whatever you like. Don't go in there and expropriate property at will. You have to take into account the ethics of what's going on.
But why in the first place did the Torah say you can expropriate?
Why can you?
Yes.
Well, in the beginning, the first consideration.
I know the end. In the end, yes. In the end of the day, we are telling you to take the meitav.
Well, the first consideration is to pay back the nizak. I mean, the nizak is our first consideration,
right?
Because he's the one who's hurting. But
right.
But we never want to do that at the expense of the mazik. I mean,
right.
Beyond what's fair.
Right.
So.
Very good. Yes.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. It's amazing. It's just amazing. It's amazing how sensitive, like ethically, you could be towards the person who is guilty. I mean, because it just introduces such a human dimension into something that the danger of is what's going on is that because it's just mathematical. Okay, he owes this, whatever. Go in there, take out his furniture and whatever you like. But you say, well, no, wait a minute. He's also a human being. Just because he made a mistake doesn't mean you can do whatever you want with him.
Right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's. So he says, Rashi Fidellah Hachi Yosek Krola Mema Yoshiv Lo Shabbat. You could come in. Good. Now, Rashi is going to give a whole other interpretation, which we're not going to get into. Okay. Okay, just with the original text of whether it was talking about a regular person or whether it's talking about a poor person. But let's look at now, and because we should wrap it up. Let's look at now, just to say, at least our first reading here, how they're going to knock off, they're going to soter Abaya. Matkifle Rab. Yes, go ahead.
I'm enjoying.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm enjoying this so much as always, but I'm very aware of the time because I have to teach tomorrow. You know,
Okay, just let me read that slime. It's not a big.
I'm
We won't
afraid
have
that
to
I'm
go
going to be
deep.
brain dead if I don't.
Okay, no, but this is what exactly what you said. So it fits in beautifully, and I don't want to lose it right now because it fits in
Okay,
perfectly to what you
because we
just
have
said.
it.
Okay, Matkite Ravacha Bar
Okay.
Eda. Im kain horas kochan shel hanizak etzel beininus and zibris. According to your interpretation, Babaya, you're now reducing or worsening the power of the nizak, correct? When it comes to beininus and zibris,
Right.
you're saying you're protecting the mazik, but on the other hand, you're limiting the nizak.
Right.
And says Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, the Rachmana Omar, the Torah said mi meitav. Va'at amarta beinis v'zibris nami lo. The simple peshat in meitav is af meitav. Until meitav you can take. And you're saying only meitav and not beinis and zibris.
Right.
It's not, as I said, the spirit of the pasuk.
Right.
You know. So anyway, Ella, he's going to knock out Abaya. We're going to go to the next interpretation. Okay. So okay, well, yeah, at this point we'll stop. So he says you're right. You're right. You have a good interpretation, but it doesn't fit into the spirit of the words.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit of law is to give the nizak the upper hand here because he's the one that's been aggrieved. If you ask who's the aggrieved party here, it's the nizak. I never wanted to give you my cow. I didn't sell you the cow. You didn't borrow the cow. I didn't ask you to watch the cow. You came and you destroyed my cow.
Right.
So the Torah now feels that the nizak should be the one who has the advantage. It says you, Mr. Nizak, now can take whatever you want up to the greatest stuff that the mazik has. Whatever you need, just take it. Whatever you feel best with. And again, we have to talk about that very important distinction you made between technicality and humanality, or ethics and law, let's say, dry law. Okay? But anyway, that's what he gets him on the point. He says when the Torah says meitav, the simple understanding is that we're giving the advantage to the nizak. We're not limiting the nizak. According to you, meitavin miniach minelo is a limitation on the nizak. But the simple meaning of these words is that we're giving the full advantage to the nizak that he can get up to meitav. Anyway, okay, so we'll stop there, Baruch Hashem. I just wanted to finish that point, and we will continue. Maybe if you have some time,
do you have time Moshe Shabbos?
Yes, I always have time to learn. Yes,
yeah?
Yes,
okay.
100%.
Okay, great. So it's going to be late. I mean,
I don't care. It'd be 2 o'clock in the morning.
Around your. Okay, so we get out here. Shabbos will be over. I guess you're 11 o'clock.
So 11:30, 11:45, 12, 12 to 2.
No. Maybe let's aim for 11:15 or so. I want to do it as soon as possible.
What you do,
give myself time for Havdalah.
So what you do is I'll be on at let's say 11:15 or something, and whenever you come on, okay? In other words, the thing will be turned on, and whenever you happen to pin, if it's 11:30, 11:45, 11:10, whatever it happens, I'll come on early.
Or
you know what? Send me an email that you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll turn the thing on. Okay, because this is lovely. I mean, this is.
Yeah, it is.
Nothing like it, and we're only. Believe it as deep as we are, it's only the surface because we have to get more and more educated. But okay, again, if we keep going down, then we won't get to our final goal. But we have unfortunately, I was learning. I was learning in the base midrash with a chavrus of mine, also a student, but he's a student chavrus, around 4 years ago. And one of the big rabbis came over to us, and he saw us on the same page after, a month. So he waves his hand. He says, "Don't you think it's about time to go a little further?" And believe it or not, we were in this piece, So
Really?
when you see the depth and the beauty, and you realize that you have to spell out very carefully this delicate relationships that are going on, so it becomes more and more exciting as you get deeper and deeper. you know.
Right.
But, you know, we have other goals in life, so we have to move on a little.
Right.
But anyway, that's it. And when we go over it again, believe that if Hashem gives us the blessing that we go through this whole piece and we go over it again, and, you know, and you
Right.
get up, and then you'll be much more educated, and you'll also have a better way of presenting it. And B'ezrat Hashem, you know, we'll improve the quality. That's what's happening now. As I go over this, the quality gets better and better and better, you know, because I'm more sensitive to every little word. Okay, have a great Shabbos, and give me an email when you're ready to go, and we will continue. B'ezrat Hashem.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Cool too.
Have a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.